It was 1983, in Shidianzi Village. I was walking back from the bridge, books in my arms, when I heard the news that hit me like a thunderbolt. The village women were shouting that my fiancé, Jiang Runsheng, had been caught half-naked with my stepsister Chen Xiaomeng in a haystack at the threshing ground. My books slipped from my hands and crashed to the ground. Everyone turned to stare at me. The air went dead silent. My stepmother, Chen Xiaomeng, immediately tried to defend her daughter, insisting Xiaomeng would never do such a thing. But I kept my face calm and said we should go see for ourselves. When we pushed through the crowd at the threshing ground, there they were. Xiaomeng stood by the haystack with her clothes all messed up, clutching Runsheng's sleeve and playing the victim. Runsheng hung his head, his white shirt wrinkled and covered in straw. Then something strange happened. A voice slipped into my mind, clear as day. It was Xiaomeng's voice, but her lips weren't moving. I was hearing her thoughts. Now Jiang Runsheng has no choice but to marry me. What can that little wretch Xiao Qingyan do to compete with me? My fists clenched tight. I realized this whole thing was her scheme. She had planned it all. And when I looked closely at her face, I caught it. That tiny smirk at the corner of her mouth. The same look she always wore whenever she tricked our parents into punishing me instead of her. Runsheng tried to grab my hand, reeking of alcohol, mumbling about wanting to explain. I stepped away from him coldly. The village chief, Jiang Runsheng, Runsheng's own father, arrived with a face like a storm. He asked his son what happened. Runsheng could only stammer that he'd had too much to drink. The truth was, back when the Jiang family sent a matchmaker to our door, they made it clear Runsheng wanted me. He chose me, but Xiaomeng had always been jealous. She seduced him tonight while he was drunk, deliberately getting caught, so the scandal would force his hand. The villagers demanded the matter be reported to the commune. Runsheng panicked and dropped to his knees in front of his father. Xiaomeng knelt too, putting on her most pitiful face and said softly, "Village chief, I already belong to Brother Runsheng now." Then her thoughts rang through my head again. This is perfect. Now he's trapped. He has no choice but to marry me. I stood there in the fading sunset, watching them kneel together, and I understood everything with perfect clarity. This wasn't an accident. It was a trap, and I was the one it was set for. I stood there, fists clenched, watching this ridiculous scene unfold. What shocked me wasn't heartbreak. It was disbelief. Did Xiaomeng really throw away her own reputation just to steal something from me? My stepmother slapped Xiaomeng's back a few times, scolding her. But Xiaomeng clung to Runsheng's arm and declared again, "I'm already his woman now." Runsheng tried to shake her off. "Xiaomeng, stop talking nonsense. We didn't even go that far." He looked at me with guilt all over his face, and I could see the truth. They'd been caught before things went all the way. He was drunk, and she had lured him in. Then Xiaomeng turned on the tears. "Brother Runsheng, won't you take responsibility for me?" Runsheng looked up at his father helplessly. Village Chief Zhang's face was dark as the bottom of a pot. After a long silence, the old man spoke. "Runsheng, marry Xiaomeng." Runsheng's legs gave out, and he dropped to the ground. He looked at me, opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I turned my face away. I didn't want to see him. We'd grown up together, elementary school, high school, all of it. After graduation, I became a teacher and he got a job as a broadcaster at the township station. When he sent a matchmaker to my door, I thought he was a decent man worth trusting. I never loved him the way a woman loves a man. I saw him more like a big brother. But I figured feelings could grow over time, so I said yes. Now, looking at his shirt buttoned wrong and the red marks on Xiaomeng's neck, I felt nothing but disgust. His so-called affection for me was worth exactly this much. I didn't want a dirty man. Runsheng made one last attempt to resist. "Father, I can't marry Xiaomeng," the crowd gasped. Even I was slightly surprised. Xiaomeng's face twisted with rage, and her thoughts screamed in my head, "Do you love that little wretch Xiao Qingyan that much?" So that's what she called me in her mind. A wretch. My stepmother jumped in, jabbing her finger at Runsheng. "What? You think because you're the village chief's son you can have two wives like in the old days? You ruin my older daughter, and then marry the younger one? Both my girls revolving around you." She threatened to report Runsheng to the commune for rape if the Jiang family didn't make this right. The village chief's face twitched. He ordered Runsheng to man up, reminding him that his career at the broadcasting station was at stake. Finally, the old man announced to the whole crowd his son would marry Chen Xiaomeng. He promised a proper wedding and extra bride price. My stepmother's face softened immediately. She'd always wanted Xiaomeng to marry into the Jiang family anyway. When the matchmaker first came, she'd hoped they wanted Xiaomeng, not me. Now things had turned out exactly as she wished. Xiaomeng couldn't hide her grin anymore. She looked at me and put on her innocent act. Little sister, don't be angry. Love is about mutual feelings. You and Brother Runsheng just were meant to be. He's your brother-in-law now, so keep your distance. Runsheng called my name softly, choking on his words. I looked at both of them and said, I didn't make a scene just now, not because I'm weak, but because I don't care. Anything that can be stolen so easily isn't worth holding onto. Then I raised my hand and slapped Runsheng hard across the face. The red handprint bloomed on his pale skin. Xiaomeng screamed and rushed to touch his cheek. Hit me instead, not him. So I slapped her too. She stared at me, eyes wide with shock. In her mind, she shrieked, You dare actually hit me? My stepmother lunged at me, but Runsheng blocked her hand with his arm. That woman had hit me plenty of times before, pinching, twisting, leaving bruises all over my body whenever my father wasn't home. And Xiaomeng would always pretend to break up the fight while actually holding me in place, so I couldn't escape the blows. I crossed my arms and told them the truth. These 2 slaps were what you owed me. Now we're even. And Xiaomeng, you're the pitiful one here. Your whole life, you've been like a dog snatching food, always fixated on what's in someone else's bowl. From the moment I heard her true thoughts, whatever sisterly feeling I had left was gone. Completely dead. Runsheng grabbed my arm, begging me to listen. I shook him off calmly. I never had romantic feelings for you. I always saw you as a big brother. I agreed to marry you because I thought love could grow. But now that you're with Xiaomeng, I wish you both a long and happy life together. I meant every word. I picked up my books and walked home without looking back. What I didn't know then was what drove Xiaomeng to do all this. In her previous life, she had watched me marry Runsheng. His career soared from the broadcasting station to a powerful position at the credit union. We lived well, and even her own mother fawned over us when we visited. Meanwhile, Xiaomeng was married off to an uneducated hunter named Xiao Jinya from the next village. Her mother had heard hunters had guns and meat and money, and when the Xiao family paid a huge bride price, she believed they were well off. The truth came out after the wedding. The bride price had drained every last coin the Xiao family had. They were dirt poor. Jinya's mother was sick and crippled, his father was dead and left behind a mountain of debt, and he had a mentally disabled sister who needed constant care. Worst of all, Jinya was cold and physically incapable as a husband. He never once touched Xiaomeng. She lived like a widow in a living man's house. This time around, she was determined not to repeat that fate. The next morning, we sat around the wooden table for breakfast. Thin porridge steamed in rough bowls. My little brother Qiao stuffed an egg in his mouth and ran outside to play. My stepmother watched him go with a warm smile. Then she did something unusual. She peeled an egg and placed it in my bowl. Her voice turned sweet as honey. Qingyan, your sister's wedding with Runsheng is settled. The Xiao family already paid us bride price for her. So you'll marry into the Xiao family in her place. I picked the egg out of my bowl and dropped it back into hers. I can't afford your egg. In this house, there were always exactly 3 eggs per meal. One for my father who worked the fields, one for precious Xiaomeng, and one for their baby boy. I never got an egg. Not once. My stepmother kicked my father under the table. He put down his chopsticks and mumbled, Qingyan, just listen to your mother. It's for your own good. I'm not marrying anyone. The engagement with the Xiao family was Xiaomeng's, not mine. I had no attachment to this family. My real mother died when I was 7. Less than 2 months later, my father married this woman. Having a stepmother meant having a stepfather too, because my real father became useless. He was weak, always bowing to whatever she wanted. The first week after she moved in, my stepmother played the loving mother. I tried so hard to make her happy. But the moment my father left for work in the next town, the masks came off.
She stopped feeding me.
She made me haul water from the village well, heavy buckets that a tiny girl could barely lift. I made 7 or 8 trips before the water tank was full. When I fell, she screamed at me. Can't even carry half a bucket.
What's the point of you?
I'd be better off raising a pig. She knew I was a clean child, so she deliberately made me scrub the outhouse, shovel animal dung, and mix pig slop with my bare hands. I threw up while I worked, crying the whole time, tears running into my mouth, tasting of salt. When my mother was alive, she never made me do any of that. I missed her so much that I'd cry silently at night, holding her old clothes, breathing in whatever was left of her scent. The adults buried my mother in the ground, but she was afraid of the dark, just like me. I wanted to dig her out because I was scared she'd be frightened down there. They told me she was dead, that she couldn't feel anything anymore.
I didn't understand.
I just stood by that mound of dirt and let the tears fall. While I worked, Xiaomeng played in the yard with her friends, kicking a beanbag around. She'd deliberately throw it at me so her friends could see me covered in filth. My aunt once bought me honey cakes. Xiaomeng and her mother ate every last one. Then my stepmother told my father I'd gobbled them all up myself, and he scolded me for being greedy. One morning, I was carrying the chamber pot outside. As I bent to pour it, Xiaomeng shoved me hard from behind. I fell face first into the mess, urine soaking my clothes. When I pushed her back, she burst into fake tears, screaming for her mother. My stepmother dragged me into the yard, shut the gate, and beat me with the sole of her shoe until her eyes turned red. But the worst thing she ever did was try to abandon me. She took me, 7 or 8 years old, to a remote path far behind the village. She said she was taking a shortcut to the market and told me to wait right there. I stood in that spot from sunrise to noon, from noon to sunset. Mosquitoes bit me everywhere. It got dark, and she never came back. I was actually worried something had happened to her. The wind blew through the corn stalks, making rustling sounds. Things crawled near my feet. Every scary noise was magnified 100 times in the darkness. I started crying and tried to walk home from memory. I stumbled into the old graveyard. Ghost fires flickered on the graves. Wolves howled from the mountains. I was shaking so hard I couldn't move. I just stood there crying, calling out for my father, for my mother, for anyone. Nobody answered. Only those eerie flames rising and falling in the dark. I cried until I had nothing left, my eyelids swollen white, my whole body frozen. Then a boy appeared on the road, maybe 13 or 14. I couldn't see his face clearly. "Why are you out here?" he asked.
I'm scared. He whispered.
"Is your home in Shidianzi Village?" "Yes. Come on. I'll take you back." He held my small hand and walked me all the way to my door. When I got home, relatives filled the yard. My father was pacing frantically. When he saw me, he hugged me with red eyes, then spanked me for running off. When I turned around to look for the boy, he was gone. For a long time, I believed my mother had sent a little ghost to protect me. I survived almost a year of that misery. When I turned 8, my aunt rescued me and took me to the city for school. I lived with her family for years and finally knew what warmth felt like. But 2 years ago, trouble hit my aunt's family, and at 17, I was forced to come back to this suffocating house. I pulled myself out of those memories. My stepmother's shrill voice cut through. "You think you can just say no? We already spent the Xiao family's bride price on your brother's school fees. You're marrying whether you like it or not." I looked at my father. He tapped his chopsticks on the table, kept his head down, slurped his porridge, and refused to meet my eyes. "So Xiaomeng steals my fiancé, and now you're forcing me to marry in her place? That's what you call for my own good?" Xiaomeng put on her sweet face. "Sister, Runsheng and I fell in love. Nobody stole anything. Don't be so selfish, think about our parents. The Xiao family's bride price is already spent. What difference does it make which one of us marries over there? Then why don't you marry him yourself?" I shot back. She fumbled. "My wedding with Runsheng is already arranged. I can't go back on it." My father slammed the table. "You're 18. You can't stay home eating free rice forever. You'll marry sooner or later. Then Xiaoming's thoughts rang in my head again, and what I heard made my blood run cold. If she won't marry the Xiao family hunter, we'll sell her to that old bachelor on the west side of the village. She's never going to have a good life. I want to watch her rot. The old bachelor on the west side. A man who never bathed, with yellow teeth and almost no hair left, who was so disgusting it made your skin crawl. He was known for being a pervert. Every wife he'd ever had died under his abuse. They were planning to sell me to that monster. My lips trembled. Rage burned up from my chest. I stared at Xiaomeng. Do you really hate me that much? What did I ever do to you? Ever since I could remember, she had tormented me. She cut up the cloth doll my dead mother made for me. She broke bowls and blamed me. She planted a stolen pencil in my bag, so everyone at school called me a thief. She pushed me downstairs when nobody was looking. She whispered poison in my ear. Your mother is dead, nobody loves you, and your mother must have been a terrible person to die so young. Whenever I finally fought back, she'd cry to the adults first, and I'd get the beating. She'd stand behind her mother, covering her mouth, smiling. As we got older, it only got worse. She'd inspect my clothes, say they were ugly, then sneak into my closet and wear them herself. She told me to remember my place, that no matter how many years I spent in the city with my aunt, I was still a wild pheasant wrapped in phoenix feathers. I sometimes thought that if Xiaomeng and her mother had been born into a theater troupe, they'd have been the star performers. What are you talking about? Xiaomeng blinked innocently. We're sisters. I could never hate you. My father slapped the table again. She's trying to help you, and you attack her. A single tear slid down my face and landed on my collar. What was left for me in this house? A stepsister who wanted me in hell. A stepmother who only cared about her own children. A father who sided with outsiders against his own daughter. I was always the outsider here. The spare one. The one nobody needed. I knew if I refused, my stepmother and Xiaomeng would find something even crueler. Rather than stay here, terrified, waiting to be sold off, I'd take my chances with the Xiao family. At least I'd escape this place. The hunter's son, Xiao Jinya. I'd heard of him, but never seen him. He was in his 20s, made a living hunting, had no education. But he was young. That alone made him 100 times better than some filthy old man who could be my grandfather. After a long silence, I opened my eyes. The sadness was gone. Only clarity remained. I'll marry him. Xiaomeng's thoughts flooded my ears again, dripping with glee. Perfect. The Xiao family is dirt poor. His father died and left nothing but debt. He's got a sick, crippled mother and a mentally disabled sister. 2 deadweights. Qiao Qingyan will spend the rest of her life suffering in poverty. She'll never be able to compete with me again. I lowered my gaze. Being poor didn't scare me. As long as the man had good character and wasn't lazy, things could get better. Then I looked up and added calmly, but I have one condition. What condition? My stepmother asked immediately. I want a dowry. Of course we'll give you a dowry. That goes without saying. I want everything you originally prepared for Xiaomeng's dowry. Double. What? My stepmother's voice shot up. Are you crazy? She'd originally set aside 100 yuan from the Jiang family's bride price, plus 2 new quilts and some household goods as dowry for Xiaomeng. Now I was asking for double that amount. To her, that was like asking for her life. Absolutely not. I'll give you 1 quilt, and nothing else. Then I won't marry. I didn't budge an inch. Every bit of my teacher's salary had been squeezed out of me. My stepmother always found some excuse to take it for household expenses. I had nothing saved. If I was about to marry into a poor family, I needed money in my hands or I'd be completely helpless. Xiaomeng grabbed her mother's arm and pulled her into the back room. I couldn't hear what they whispered, but I could hear Xiaomeng's thoughts loud and clear. She was convincing her mother to agree for now. Her logic was simple. Get me married off first, then find a way to take the money back later. She reminded her mother that as long as I stayed in the house, Runsheng might not forget about me, and that could threaten her own marriage. She also reassured her mother that once she married Runsheng, his government salary would all go to her, and she'd make up whatever her mother lost on my dowry. My stepmother thought it over and finally nodded. They came back to the table. Xiaomeng smiled sweetly. "Qingyan, Mom agreed to your dowry." My father looked stunned, then turned to me with a stern face. "See how good your mother and sister are to you? You should be grateful." "Then I really must thank you all," I said coldly. 200 yuan for the dowry. "Don't short me a single cent." Xiaomeng's thoughts oozed with satisfaction. 200 yuan is nothing. "Little sister, once you marry over there, you'll know what it feels like to be a living widow. That Xiao Jinya is useless as a man. He can't even perform. You'll rot in that house for the rest of your life, while Runsheng and I live happily ever after." I raised an eyebrow. Useless as a man? That was actually perfect for me. I had no desire to do that kind of thing with someone I didn't love. Meanwhile, up on Chaiyuan Ridge, the man I was about to marry was hunting. I didn't know any of this at the time, but I'd later learn what happened that day. Xiao Jinya was crouched in the tall grass, wearing a buckskin jacket, black pants hugging his long legs, brown boots on his feet, a rifle at his hip and several knives on his belt. The mountain wind cut across his sharp features. He looked wild and untamed. He had a bow drawn tight, aiming at a fat black boar, his muscled arms strained with coiled power, veins standing out. He closed one eye, aimed behind the front leg where the organs were clustered, and released. The arrow flew true. The boar squealed, staggered, and collapsed. Jinya stood up, tall, broad-shouldered, powerfully built. He grabbed the boar by its front hooves and hoisted the nearly 200-pound animal onto his shoulder like it was nothing, then strode toward his camp. His father had built a small wooden cabin halfway up the eastern slope, a shelter for overnight hunting trips. Jinya planned to stay the night and check his traps and snares in the morning before heading down with all his catch. When he reached the cabin, smoke was rising from inside. His friend Fong Jijia was there, leaning in the doorway. "Not bad. That's a big one," Jijia said, eyeing the boar. Jinya dropped the animal in the corner and asked flatly, "Why are you here?" His voice was cold, his face blank. He always talked like that, like emotion was something that happened to other people. Jijia pointed at the table. "Your mom was worried you'd go hungry. She sent steamed buns." Jinya sat down and tore into a corn bun, biting off half in one go. He washed it down with big gulps from a military canteen. Water trickled down his jaw and neck, disappearing into his collar. Then Jijia grinned. "Got some good news for you. Your mom arranged a marriage for you." Jinya choked on his water. "What did you say? Your mom set you up." "She kept it secret because she knew you'd refuse. The girl's family already took the bride price. It's a done deal. You're marrying Chen Xiaomeng from Shidianzi Village." Jinya's expression went even darker. He stared at Jijia, searching for a sign that this was a joke. There was none. He shoved the half-eaten bun back into the cloth bag and paced the small cabin. Jijia kept talking, unable to help himself. "That Xiao family hit the jackpot, honestly. The older daughter goes to you, and the younger one is engaged to Jiang Runsheng from the same village. The younger one's name is Qiao Qingyan, you remember her? That soft, delicate little thing," he rambled on. "She's the prettiest girl in 10 villages, honestly. Runsheng marrying her makes sense. They're both educated types, him a broadcaster, her a teacher. They match perfectly. A real power couple." Jinya stood by the window, half his face hidden in shadow. He said nothing, but his dark eyes grew dimmer and dimmer with every word Jijia spoke. My wedding day and Xiaomeng's wedding day fell on the same date, the second day of the month. Both grooms' families had picked it independently. It was the only auspicious date in the next 2 months. That morning, Shidianzi Village was loud with drums and firecrackers. Relatives filled the house. 2 bicycles stood parked outside our shabby courtyard gate. Jiang Runsheng wore a white shirt and dark pants with a big red flower pinned to his chest. He looked handsome, but there was no happiness on his face. He gripped his bicycle handles and stared, not at Xiaomeng but at me. We stood side by side, both wearing braids, but that was where the resemblance ended. Xiaomeng had dark skin and wore a brand new heavy red dress that only made her look darker. She took after her mother. High cheekbones, thin lips, a sharp and harsh face, flat figure. Everything about her screaming plain and rural. I wore a simple old pink dress made of thin fabric. I knew I looked fine in it. I didn't need anything fancy. Xiaomeng rushed over and grabbed Runsheng's arm with a bright smile. Brother Runsheng, but his eyes were glued to me. Qingyan, he called softly. Xiaomeng's smile froze. Her thoughts screamed in my head. Even now you're seducing him, you shameless wretch. I glanced at her with pity, like she was a clown not worth a second look. Then Runsheng noticed the small red flower pinned to my chest too. His face went pale. What's that? What does that mean? I pointed at the second bicycle. Brother Runsheng, I'm getting married today. What? His eyes went wide. You're getting married? You just broke off our engagement. How can you be marrying someone else already? He stared at me like the world had stopped making sense. Qingyan, are you doing this to get back at me? Is that what this is? I almost laughed. Why would I use my own marriage to get back at you? You think too highly of yourself. The world doesn't revolve around you. That hit him like a slap. Xiaomeng jumped in eagerly. It's true, Brother Runsheng. Qingyan is marrying into the Xiao family in the next village. She'll be someone else's wife from today. Her thoughts dripped with contempt. Go marry that crude, uneducated hunter. Once the Xiao family grinds you down into an ugly, broke village woman. Let's see if Runsheng ever looks at you again. But Runsheng refused to accept it. He convinced himself I was doing this out of spite, that I still cared about him. He stepped forward and pleaded with me. Qingyan, marriage is a lifelong decision. Don't be impulsive. I know you're still angry. I can explain what happened with Xiaomeng. I can make it up to you. I shook my head and cut him off. I'm calling you Brother Runsheng one last time, for the sake of our childhood. Let me say this clearly. I have never had romantic feelings for you. I don't care who you're with. Today is a happy day for both of us. I don't want to ruin it. From now on, we go our separate ways. As your sister-in-law, I wish you happiness. Xiaomeng stood there digging her nails into her palms, forcing a bride's smile onto her face. Since Runsheng arrived, he hadn't looked at her once. Hadn't spoken a single word to her. His eyes were on me the entire time, as if she, the actual bride, was invisible. What made it worse were the village women whispering nearby, all saying how much prettier I was than Xiaomeng. She heard every word. She had dressed up today specifically to outshine me. New dress, rouge on her lips. She'd even told her mother not to give me any new clothes, making sure I'd wear an old dress on my wedding day. But I just stood there in that faded pink dress, and it didn't matter. Her thoughts were boiling. Why? As long as you exist, I'm always the dull one. Everyone only sees you. Why? I'd had enough of the noise. I straightened my back and walked to the other bicycle without looking at either of them. The rider was a relative sent by my future mother-in-law to escort me. Behind the bicycle was a small donkey cart loaded with my dowry, bedding, pots, bowls, and daily necessities. I patted my pocket to make sure the 200 yuan was still there. I didn't look back at the house or at any of them. Let's go, I said quietly. Behind me, Runsheng stood frozen like a statue. His fingers trembled. He took a step to chase after me, but Xiaomeng grabbed his wrist and held tight. Brother Runsheng, she made herself clear. Stop chasing her. Her voice quivered with hurt and frustration. I'm your bride today. Me. That one sentence was like cold water thrown over him. He finally stopped and looked down at her. Her dark face was caked with powder that looked ghostly gray up close. It made things worse, not better. He tilted his head toward the sky, wishing for a downpour to wake him from this nightmare. As the bicycle bumped along the dirt road, I watched the courtyard shrink behind me, swaying in my vision. I could make out Xiaomeng and her mother holding hands at the gate, crying, a mother sending off her beloved daughter. I saw my father standing in the doorway, looking in my direction. There was something in his eyes. I couldn't tell what it was, and I no longer cared. Nanjiaping Village was about 4 miles from Shidianzi. To the east rose a big, dense mountain called Chaiyuan Ridge. The Xiao family's house sat at the very edge of the village, right at the foot of that mountain. I clutched my bundle tight the whole ride. My heart was pounding. There was a hunter back in my village, an ugly, rough man with a wide nose, sunken eyes, and a face full of mean flesh. I kept wondering if Xiao Jinya looked like that. I wasn't shallow about appearances, but we'd be living under the same roof. I just hoped he wasn't terrifying to look at. When we arrived, I spotted a small house with its own courtyard, standing alone. A middle-aged woman stood at the gate, wringing her hands, craning her neck in our direction. A few villagers had gathered to watch. The bicycle stopped. "We're here," the rider said. I stepped off and got a clear look at the woman. She was around 50, face lined with wrinkles, a few silver threads in her hair. Her clothes were rough cotton with patches sewn over patches. But her expression was kind. This had to be Xiao Jinya's mother. She limped forward with a warm smile, pulled 2 packs of cigarettes from her pocket, and handed them to the man who'd brought me. "Jisheng, thank you for the trouble. Take these for good luck. When Jinya gets back and sees the bride you found him, he'll be thrilled," Jisheng said with a grin. The old woman's face crinkled with joy. She invited him in for tea, but he said he had business and rode off. I glanced quietly at her bad leg. So, it was true. Jinya's mother really was lame. She turned to look at me, her eyes scanning me up and down. Something lit up in her gaze, surprise, then delight. She took my hand warmly. "You must be Qingyan." "Yes." I managed a polite nod. I didn't know what to call her. Mom wouldn't come out. I settled on a quiet "Auntie." I peeked past her into the yard. Red paper-cut characters for "Double Happiness" were pasted on the gate. But the courtyard was empty. No sign of Xiao Jinya anywhere. He hadn't come to pick me up on our wedding day. Now I was at his house, and only his mother had come out to greet me. What was that supposed to mean? There was no wedding banquet either. I'd expected that, after paying the bride price, the family had probably emptied their savings. There was nothing left for a feast. I didn't mind. This was a substitute marriage I never wanted. I wasn't going to fuss over formalities. His mother beamed and patted my hand, then turned proudly to the neighbors. "This is my daughter-in-law." The village women started whispering among themselves. "Look at her, she's gorgeous. That skin, white and soft as tofu, and that waist, that figure. Jinya really hit the jackpot." My ears went red. I didn't know where to look. A child suddenly recognized me and shouted, "Teacher Qiao." I turned around. It was a student from our school. I smiled at him. "She's a teacher?" someone said, surprised. "Shunzi, she teaches at your school." The boy hopped down from a pile of bricks. "Yeah, she teaches my brother's class. 5th grade. The chatter exploded again, everyone marveling that an uneducated hunter like Xiao Jinya had somehow married a pretty young schoolteacher. His mother heard every word and every envious glance, and her smile never faded. She led me inside and sat me down. She poured water into a rough bowl, added a spoonful of white sugar, stirred it with chopsticks, and pushed it toward me. "Drink up, child. It's hot out. Some sugar water will help." Then she went outside with a bag of fruit candies and sunflower seeds, handing them out to the neighbors. "Share the good luck, share the good luck." When she came back, she sat across from me and explained. "Jinya went up the mountain to hunt yesterday. I'm not sure if he can make it back today. There's an ancestor worship festival coming up in the village, and he needs to bring an extra game for the production team." While she talked, her eyes kept wandering over my face with unmistakable delight. I could tell she was thrilled. I later learned what she'd been thinking. She'd always dreamed of a daughter-in-law like me, but never imagined it possible. Her son had no education and had dropped out of school early. Matchmakers had come before, but Jinya had turned them all away, saying he wanted to focus on earning money and taking care of her and his sister. She'd been terrified he'd stay single forever. Originally, she'd sent a matchmaker to ask for Xiaomeng. When my stepmother came to cancel the arrangement, she'd been furious, until she heard that Qiao Qingyan was being offered instead. She'd seen me once before, when she brought her daughter to our village for a movie screening. She'd thought then how wonderful it would be to have someone like me as a daughter-in-law, but figured a girl like me, educated, beautiful, would never look twice at her son. And now here I was, sitting in her house, actually her daughter-in-law. I felt her staring, and it made me self-conscious. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and looked down, fidgeting with my fingers. Quietly, I took in my new surroundings. Dirt walls, dirt floor. Not much furniture. A scarred wooden table, a few old chairs, a battered cabinet. Everything was old, but there wasn't much clutter. The floor was swept clean, not a speck of dust or trash. In the corner sat a pot of flowers I couldn't name, and somehow it made the whole humble room feel a little more refined.
Clean, tidy,
Cared for. This told me something important. This family was poor, but they weren't lazy. They were people who took life seriously. And this mother-in-law of mine, from the moment I arrived, her warm eyes, her gentle words, my anxious heart began to settle, just a little. The man with the donkey cart finished unloading all my things into the house. My mother-in-law handed him tea and thanked him over and over. At the door, I watched them go back and forth, him trying to refuse the cigarettes, her stuffing them into his pocket anyway. I was watching this little scene outside when I didn't notice something moving under the table. A chubby little hand crept out from below, reaching silently toward my bowl of sugar water. I was sitting at the table when I felt something rustling beside me. I glanced down and saw a chubby little hand appearing out of nowhere. I jumped off the stool, my heart nearly leaping out of my chest. My mother-in-law hurried inside. Duo, you scared your sister-in-law. A round little head poked out from under the table. A girl, maybe 6 or 7, wearing a tiny vest and shorts, with 2 little pigtails sticking up like goat horns. She was round everywhere. Round head, round belly, round cheeks. She looked at me with a mix of silliness and shyness. Just a kid. I pressed my hand to my chest and let out a long breath. Don't be scared, Qingyan. This is your little sister-in-law. You probably already know. She's not quite like other children. My mother-in-law pulled Duo out from under the table and gave her bottom a light smack. What were you doing under there? Look how you frightened your sister-in-law. Duo didn't cry. She just giggled and pointed at my bowl. Duo.
drink.
Sweet. I couldn't help smiling. That's for your sister-in-law, you silly girl. My mother-in-law led her over to me by the hand.
This is your sister-in-law.
Say it, sister-in-law. The little girl blinked her dazed eyes, stuck a finger in her mouth, swirled it around, then pulled it out trailing a string of drool. In the softest, mushiest voice, she said, Sis Bob. My heart practically melted. How could anyone be this adorable? I crouched down, gently pinched her plump cheek, and whispered, How old are you? She stared at me blankly, not understanding. My mother-in-law smoothed back the sweaty hair on Duo's forehead. Tell your sister-in-law how old you are. Duo held up both hands and wiggled her fingers, making 2 little grunting sounds, but no real words. My mother-in-law gently tugged her ear. Your brother just taught you this the other day. Already forgot. She shaped Duo's fingers into the number 7. Duo is 7 this year, right? The little girl scrunched her nose. 7. Good girl, I said. Do you want to drink the sugar water? She nodded. I carried the bowl over and crouched down, holding it to her lips. Her 2 soft, pudgy hands wrapped around it, and she gulped it down noisily. When she finished, she licked her lips, tugged at her shorts that had ridden up, scooted past me, and waddled out to the yard to play. My mother-in-law watched her go, and sighed gently. She's been slow since birth. Walking, talking, everything came late. She learns things much slower than other kids. You've raised her well, I said. She seems sweet and well-behaved. That's mostly Genia's doing. She's glued to her brother. She paused, looked at me, and added carefully, Qingyan, Duo may be young, but she won't be a burden on you and Genia. Once you 2 have children, we'll split the household. You and Genia can live your own life, and I'll take care of Duo. Annie, please don't say that. I married into this family.
We're all one family now.
I'll help you look after Duo too. I meant it. My instincts told me these were good people. My mother-in-law was gentle and polite. The house was kept in perfect order. And this little sister-in-law, slow as she was, had a pure sweetness that made your heart ache. With a mother like this, I thought, Xiao Genia probably wasn't bad either. I was getting more and more curious about this husband I'd never met. Around noon, my mother-in-law killed a chicken to cook lunch. I tried to help in the kitchen, but she shooed me out.
So I stayed in the yard with Duo.
I took my time looking around the place. The courtyard walls were old earthen brick, weathered and crumbling in spots. Animal pens were lined up neatly on the left side. Along the right wall, someone had planted flowers and greenery. Pink climbing roses crept up the worn walls, creating an unexpectedly beautiful scene. When I lived in the city with my aunt, she loved growing flowers too. The balcony was always full of potted plants. The house was always clean, and my bedsheets always smelled of fresh sunshine. When I went back to my father's house, it was the opposite. Chicken droppings in the yard, everything a mess. I'd clean it up, but 3 adults would trash it again, and eventually I just gave up and only kept my own room tidy. But the Xiao family courtyard, I'd never seen a rural home this well maintained. My mother-in-law was clearly a careful, thoughtful woman. When she butchered the chicken, she did it outside the yard. Afterward, she shoveled dirt over the blood and innards, sprinkled lime on top to kill the smell. The covered waste would decompose over months and enrich the soil for growing vegetables. She thought of everything. The house sat on higher ground. From the courtyard wall, I could see most of the village spread out below. Behind us rose Chaiyuan Ridge, lush and green. I tilted my head up and looked at the midday sun. It stung my eyes, but its warmth felt impossibly kind. Within a few hours, Duo and I were already thick as thieves. She grabbed one of my fingers and led me to a cage in the corner of the yard. Inside was a small white rabbit with silky fur, nibbling on scattered vegetable leaves. "Bunny," she said, pulling my hand, showing off her pet. I reached in and stroked the rabbit's soft fur. "Who gave you the bunny?" She didn't answer right away. She held a piece of green leaf to the rabbit's mouth, but it shrank back, red eyes timid. After a long pause, she said slowly, "Brother." "Bunny." I understood. Her brother gave her the rabbit. I petted her hair softly and crouched beside the cage, resting my chin on my hand, watching her play with the little animal. Then, from outside the yard, I heard footsteps. I stood up and looked toward the gate. Someone was already stepping through. Auntie Zeng, a girl with thick eyebrows and big eyes, walked through the gate carrying a basket of steaming buns. She wore a floral blouse and black pants. When she spotted me, she stopped dead in her tracks. My mother-in-law limped out of the kitchen in her apron. "Chunya, what brings you here?" Chunya's eyes swept over the red double happiness characters pasted on every window. Her smile went stiff. "My mom steamed some date buns and wanted me to bring them over." My mother-in-law took the basket warmly, then introduced us. "This is Qingyan, Jinya's wife. And Qingyan, this is Chunya, the Wang family's girl from down the hill." Chunya barely nodded at me, her lips pressing downward. I wasn't sure if I imagined it, but her eyes looked red, like the rabbits in the cage. She didn't stay long. After a quiet, awkward moment between us, she called goodbye to my mother-in-law and left. I didn't know it then, but Xiaomeng had already poisoned Chunya's mind about me. She told her I was a lazy, arrogant city girl who looked down on country people, refused to do housework, flirted with village men, stole her clothes, and blamed everything on her. Chunya believed every word. When she saw me standing there in my pink dress, with my pale skin and my quiet manner, she thought I confirmed everything Xiaomeng had said: cold, proud, and a fox spirit who'd steal any man's soul. Chunya went home and cried all afternoon. She didn't eat lunch. She lay on her bed and soaked her pillow with tears. It was obvious she had feelings for Jinya. That evening, her father mentioned he'd run into Jinya on the road. Instead of coming home to his new bride, Jinya had gone to his friend Jijia's house and planned to sleep there for the night. When Chunya heard that, her face brightened instantly. Her father said it plainly. A man who won't come home on his wedding night clearly isn't happy about the marriage. He doesn't want to face his new wife. Meanwhile, I knew nothing about any of this. Lunch that day was the best meal I'd had in the 2 years since returning to the countryside. My mother-in-law made braised chicken, stir-fried greens, and loofah soup. The rice was steamed with pumpkin on top, making everything soft and fragrant. In some distant corner of my memory, my own mother used to cook rice the same way. "How is it? Does it suit your taste?" my mother-in-law asked, watching me hopefully. I set down my chopsticks, sat up straight, and answered honestly. It's delicious, Auntie. Her smile crinkled her whole face. She kept piling food into my bowl. Both tender drumsticks from the chicken. One went to me, one to Duo. That hen had been raised for over a year, meant to be sold for money. But she'd slaughtered it for my first day in this home, without a second thought. I looked at the mountain of food in my bowl and had to stop her. Auntie, please eat. Don't give me any more. I can't finish all this. Back at my father's house, whenever my stepmother cooked meat, she'd serve her own children first, then my father. If my chopsticks drifted anywhere near the meat dish, her sharp eyes would cut me like knives. I wasn't greedy for meat, but the feeling of being excluded, mistreated, treated like I didn't belong, that was hard to swallow. Now here was this woman I'd barely met, showering me with food and warmth like it was the most natural thing in the world. My nose stung, and something warm spread through my chest. I picked up a piece of chicken and placed it in her bowl. Auntie, let's eat together. By evening, it was clear Genia wasn't coming home. I bathed, changed, and sat alone in the bridal room. The room was small but clean. A Kong bed piled with new quilts, including the ones I'd brought. A wooden wardrobe, freshly built, where I'd already hung my clothes. Fresh newspaper pasted on the walls. Double happiness characters on the windows. A small orchid on the windowsill. On the inner wall, I noticed a door connecting to another small room. My mother-in-law had told me it was Genia's old room. She said I could look around if I wanted. I slipped on my sandals and pushed aside the dark blue floral curtain. His room was even smaller. A little earthen Kong with bedding folded in perfect squares.
A few spare clothes laid out neatly.
On a small table by the window sat some clay figurines, little people shaped from mud. Duoduo's toys, probably made by him. Then my nose caught something. A scent lingering in the air. Male, but not unpleasant. Clean and sharp, like mountain air. I touched my burning cheeks. What was I doing snooping around a man's bedroom? I pulled the curtain shut, went back to my new bed, and lay down. The thin blanket settled over my waist. My hair fanned across the pillow. Sleep came quickly. Somewhere across the hills, in Shidianzi Village, in Jiang Runsheng's wedding chamber, a very different scene was unfolding.
But I knew nothing about that.
I didn't know what happened at Jiang Runsheng's house that night, but I'd eventually hear about it. Runsheng had drunk himself senseless at his own wedding banquet. Two men dragged him into the bridal chamber where Xiaomeng was waiting, freshly washed, under the dim yellow light. She rushed to hold him up, helped him to the bed, pulled off his shoes. Brother Runsheng, are you all right? Are you feeling sick? He reached up and touched her face with glazed, unfocused eyes. You're so beautiful, Xiaomeng blushed, until he finished the sentence. Qingyan, you're so beautiful. That must have hit her like ice water. She shook his face and told him she wasn't me, that she was his wife, Chen Xiaomeng. But he just kept calling my name, pulling her close, mumbling that he loved me, begging me to forgive him. He didn't even know who he was holding. Xiaomeng swallowed her humiliation. She told herself it didn't matter. Once they consummated the marriage, he'd eventually realize she was better than me. She undressed, turned off the light, and let him think she was me. Things were building toward the inevitable. Then nothing. Runsheng cursed under his breath in the dark and collapsed like a deflated balloon. Xiaomeng froze. She'd heard her mother describe how things were supposed to work between a man and a woman. But it was over before anything happened. She was still fully dressed from the waist down. She pulled the light cord, looked down, and saw what could only be described as a wilted pickle. She refused to believe it. In her previous life, Runsheng had married me and they seemed happy together. How could he possibly be like that? She convinced herself it was just the alcohol. The next morning, I woke to something tickling my face. I swatted at it sleepily. Stop it. The tickling continued. I opened my eyes and found Duo standing by the Kong, grinning mischievously, brushing my cheek with a little feather. I grabbed her chubby hand. Caught you, you little troublemaker, she giggled and pointed toward the window, babbling excitedly. Brother, all my drowsiness vanished.
Ihr seid bald abseits.
Your brother's back? Duo ignored me and bounced through the connecting door to play with her clay dolls. I scrambled into my clothes, smoothed my hair, crept off the Kong, and tiptoed to the main room. I hid behind the door and peeked into the yard. My mother-in-law stood in the courtyard facing a young man. He was tall, very tall, broad-shouldered, built like a mountain. From the side, his features were striking: sharp jaw, high-bridged nose, deep-set, intense eyes. His skin was a healthy wheat brown. He was wild and rugged in a way that radiated raw power. This was Xiao Jinya? He looked nothing like the rough, sloppy hunter I'd imagined. He wore short boots and black clothes that showed the hard lines of muscle underneath. His legs were long and straight. His whole body radiated a fierce, untamed energy, the kind of man who looked like he could kill a bull with one punch. I glanced down at my own small frame, then back at him. Good Lord. He was built like a fortress. Thank heavens the rumors said he couldn't perform in bed. Because, with a body like that, I didn't dare finish the thought. Then their conversation drifted to my ears. You stubborn boy. I told you the wedding was yesterday. Why didn't you come home? His mother scolded. Mom, why did you arrange a wife for me behind my back? I told you I'm not thinking about that right now. So, he'd been forced into this too.
Just like me.
What? Am I supposed to watch you stay single your whole life? She shot back. Jinya raked a hand through his hair in frustration. I need to go back up the mountain. I won't be home for a few days. You're going to leave your new wife here alone? What is wrong with you? Mom, I know you arranged for me to marry the Qiao family's girl. I'll be honest, I don't like her. My fingers tightened on the doorframe. He continued. I can't live with someone I don't like. I can't share a bed with someone I have no feelings for. His mother smacked his arm. You are going to be the death of me. Jinya's expression softened slightly when he saw her anger. He lowered his head. Mom, please don't be upset. She dropped her voice. Tell me the truth. Is there already a girl in your heart? Jinya pressed his lips together. After a long silence, he said one word. Yes. Who? Behind the door, I leaned forward, just as curious as his mother. Jinya's lips moved a few times, but his expression looked defeated. Mom, it doesn't matter who she is. Just drop it. I don't like the one inside. He turned to leave. I'm going back up the mountain. If you need me, send Jijia to the cabin. Just before he walked away, his head snapped toward the house, a quick, sharp glance in my direction. I jerked back behind the door, heart hammering. His mother called after him to at least eat breakfast. He refused. Moments later, his heavy footsteps faded into the distance. He was gone. I didn't go out right away. I walked back to the bedroom and sat down quietly. Truthfully, I liked this family. My mother-in-law was warm and kind. The house felt like a real home. I'd been prepared to make the best of things. Even if my husband had no education and average looks, I would have tried to build a decent life with him, slowly, patiently. But now I'd seen the reality with my own eyes. Jinya wanted nothing to do with this marriage. He resisted it even more than I did. And he already had someone in his heart. No wonder he'd stayed single all these years. He was waiting for another girl. In a way, I had to admit, that made him a loyal man. I let out a quiet sigh and started thinking seriously about my future. After Jinya left, his mother sighed too, and went to the kitchen. I sat alone for a while, then went to help her. Watching her limp around made me feel guilty. Since I'd already decided I wouldn't stay forever, I couldn't just eat and live here for free. I made a mental note to spend some of my 200 yuan on groceries for the household now, and then I wouldn't be a burden. The stove was simmering sweet potato porridge. She placed the date buns Chunya had brought yesterday onto the steamer to warm them up. When she saw me, her face brightened. You're up? Hungry? I shook my head and sat down by the stove. Auntie, you cook. I'll tend the fire. She laughed gently. Silly girl, the porridge is already done. No need for more wood. The leftover heat will warm the buns. Oh. I set down the firewood I'd been about to push in, embarrassed. But the piece I'd already added had caught flame, and the fire blazed up strong. She quickly lifted the steamer lid, moved the buns, and stirred the porridge so it wouldn't burn at the bottom. Then she noticed my clean yellow dress and shooed me out. Go rest, child. The kitchen is full of smoke and soot. Don't ruin your pretty clothes. It's fine. Clothes can be washed. I stood up and looked around. What else needs doing? Let me help. She could tell I wasn't a girl who'd spent much time in kitchens. My hands were pale and smooth, my nails neatly trimmed. A schoolteacher's hands, not a farm woman's. Go sit down. Mom can handle this. Then she paused, remembering last night had been our wedding night. She added carefully, Qingyan, Genia has been very busy lately. He didn't mean to neglect you. Please don't take it to heart, Annie, it's really fine. I smiled my most understanding smile. He can focus on his work. I'll be busy too. I need to prepare lessons for next semester. She picked up a knife to slice the cucumber on the cutting board. I stepped forward immediately. Auntie, your leg, please sit. I'll cut it. It's cold cucumber salad, right? I can do that. She waved me off with a laugh. No need, no need. Just keep me company and chat. This little bit of work won't tire me. All right. I leaned against the kitchen doorframe, watching Duo crouch by the rabbit cage in the yard.
Auntie.
How did your leg get this way? I asked. I hadn't dared ask yesterday, but now that I knew her gentle nature, I felt comfortable enough. An accident a few years back. Left my leg crippled. Can't walk straight anymore. Can it be treated? Genia took me to the big hospital in the city a while back. They said there's nothing to be done. After all these years, I'm used to it. Doesn't really slow me down. She crushed 2 cloves of garlic and was about to add them to the plate when she stopped and turned to me. Child, I forgot to ask yesterday, is there anything you don't eat? I rubbed my nose, a little sheepish. I don't eat garlic. I can't stand the sharp smell. Back at my father's house, my stepmother used to mock me for being picky. To cure me, she'd deliberately load every single dish with garlic until I could practically smell it in my sleep. I was about to tell her not to worry about it, to cook however she normally would, but before the words left my mouth, she'd already set the garlic aside. I see. Mom will remember. From now on, no garlic in any of our cooking. She drizzled sesame oil over the cucumber, sprinkled fine salt, added half a spoonful of vinegar, and tossed it gently. I stood there, blinking, a sudden sting behind my nose. Does your leg hurt if you stand too long or walk too much? I asked. She chuckled. Silly girl, anyone's legs hurt if they stand long enough. It's usually fine, she continued. Just aches a bit on rainy days. But the limp doesn't stop me from doing anything. I knew I wouldn't stay here forever. But the words came out on their own, and I meant every one. Auntie, on rainy days from now on you rest. I'll do the cooking and the chores. I wasn't some pampered princess who'd never lifted a finger. At my father's house, my stepmother and Xiaomeng never let me sit idle. The moment I came home from school, they'd send me to feed the chickens, herd the sheep, haul water, and cut pig grass. If I hesitated even slightly, I'd get their sneering remarks. Oh, you really think you're some fancy city lady? After finishing all the farm work, I'd still stay up late grading my students' homework. My mother-in-law smiled warmly at my words. With those soft hands of yours, you're not built for rough work. And if I can't manage, there's always Genia. The cucumber was ready. The buns were warm. I helped carry everything out to the small stone table in the yard. It was early July and already getting sweltering indoors, but the morning breeze outside was still cool and pleasant. Duo ate like a good girl. No fussing, no coaxing needed. She held her little spoon and scooped porridge into her mouth by herself, though she was a bit messy about it, dripping soup on her clothes. My mother-in-law had tied a little bib around her neck beforehand, and after the meal, she wiped Duo's face and hands clean. The 3 of us sat together in the courtyard eating breakfast, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt something close to peace. I studied Duo's face carefully. She really did look like her brother. The same high-nose bridge, the same sculpted features, the same impossibly long eyelashes. One look and you'd know they were blood siblings. Thinking about Genia, my mind slowly mapped out a plan. I'd stay at the Xiao house for now, get settled, and try to contact my aunt's family. Maybe I could eventually arrange a transfer to a school in town. When Genia came back, I'd sit him down and propose a deal. We'd be husband and wife in name only, a paper marriage. We both needed something from this arrangement. I'd originally agreed to marry just to escape my father's house. Since Jinya had a girl he truly loved, I wouldn't force him to live a lie either. All I needed was a safe place to stay for a while. Somewhere I wasn't alone in this remote village. Somewhere my stepmother and Xiaomeng couldn't reach me. Somewhere gossips and troublemakers would leave me be. In return, I'd help take care of Duo and assist my mother-in-law with running the household. I'd pull my weight. I wouldn't be a freeloader. Once I reconnected with my aunt, we divorced peacefully, and I'd leave to join her family. I let my lips curve into a small, quiet smile.
It was a solid plan.
Reasonable. Fair to everyone. There was just one question. Would Xiao Jinya agree to it? Meanwhile, back in Shidianzi Village, Xiaomeng was playing the perfect new wife. She woke before 6 on her first morning in the Jiang household and went straight to the kitchen to cook. She knew she'd married above her station and needed to impress her in-laws. Her father-in-law was the village chief, her mother-in-law a former women's director, her sister-in-law worked at the supply cooperative, and Runsheng was a broadcaster. A whole family of respectable people. Xiaomeng was just an uneducated country girl who dropped out after 3rd grade. Her mother believed in the old saying that women didn't need schooling, so she never pushed her to study. Xiaomeng sometimes wished she'd been reborn earlier, back to childhood, where she could have studied hard and gotten into a top university. But it was too late for that now. Still, she consoled herself. I had all the education and culture, and look where it got me. Married to a poor hunter in the mountains. She had no education at all, and she'd landed in the most prestigious family in the village. That thought made her so pleased she hummed a little tune while washing rice. In the back room, village chief Jiang lay on the Kong sighing. His wife, Wei Yongqiu, asked what was wrong. "How did we end up with her?" he muttered. "Wasn't it you who told your son to marry her?" "What choice did I have?" If word reached the commune about the scandal, they'd slap a misconduct label on Runsheng and he'd lose his job. His wife poked his forehead. "You're too honest, the both of you. That girl played you. Our son is a high school graduate and a government broadcaster. Why would he ever look twice at an illiterate village girl? She obviously seduced him while he was drunk. They both knew Runsheng's heart wasn't in it. He'd been blind drunk at his own wedding, not a trace of joy on his face." Wei Yongqiu refused to help Xiaomeng in the kitchen. "She's putting on a show, getting up early to cook and impress us. I want to see how long that act lasts." I saw Jinya again 2 days later. I was down at the river washing clothes. My mother-in-law's leg made it hard for her to squat and scrub, so I'd taken over the laundry. She worried about her rough fabric hurting my soft hands, so she'd only let me wash Duoduo's small cotton clothes. The river wasn't far from the house. Willow trees lined both banks, and the water ran clear and gentle. Village women often came here to wash vegetables and clothes. When I arrived with my wooden basin, several women were already there. They'd never seen me before, and I could hear them whispering, trying to figure out who I was. The only person I recognized was Chuanya. She was around my age, and we were neighbors now, so I walked over with a friendly smile. "Hi, Chuanya." She looked up at me. My white dress, my strappy sandals, a style she'd never seen in the countryside. A breeze carried the scent of wildflowers across the river. She glanced down at her own oversized old slippers and curled her toes inward. I could sense what she was thinking. That I was some prissy city girl. That I was too delicate and refined for a hunter's wife. That Jinya and I could never fit together. She greeted me back with a flat voice and nothing more. I didn't push it. I found a smooth stone slab, crouched down, and started scrubbing the little clothes quietly. A woman nearby leaned toward Chuanya and whispered, "Who's that girl?" "Never seen her before. Auntie Zheng's daughter-in-law," Chuanya said listlessly. "Jinya's wife. She's gorgeous." Chuanya scrubbed harder, her palms turning red. I heard every word but pretended I didn't. Then a bicycle bell rang from the road above. A woman sat on the back seat, arms around the man pedaling, calling out cheerfully to the women by the river. She bragged about her husband buying a new bicycle that day, took her into town for it, and mentioned the washing machine waiting at home with clean clothes ready to hang. After they rode off, one of the women rolled her eyes. "Look at her showing off." Another asked where all that money came from. "Where do you think?" She's bleeding her older sister-in-law dry. If it were her own hard-earned money, she'd never spend so freely. Who's her sister-in-law? Who else? That famously sharp-tongued Chen Xiaomeng. I raised an eyebrow. Chen Xiaomeng, my stepmother? The village women kept gossiping by the river. I learned that my stepmother had been funneling my father's money to her younger brother Chen Liang the whole time, buying his family bicycles and washing machines while we scraped by. I kept my face calm and kept scrubbing. Whatever she did to my father's savings was no longer my problem. One by one, the women finished their laundry and headed home. I noticed Chunya had finished too, her clean clothes stacked neatly in her basin. She was about to leave, then suddenly crouched back down and grabbed a shirt, pretending to rinse it again. I followed her gaze across the river and saw a tall figure walking over the bridge.
It was Xiao Jinya.
He had a huge cloth bundle slung over one shoulder and 2 barely alive wild pheasants dangling from each hand. His steps were steady and unhurried. "Brother Jinya." Chunya waved at him, her whole face lighting up. He glanced toward the riverbank. His eyes passed over me, paused for half a second, then moved away. That was the first time we came face to face since the wedding. He walked toward us with long, confident strides. It was a hot day, and he wore just a white tank top with dark work pants and boots. His broad chest was mostly exposed, arms corded with hard muscle. Stubble shadowed his jaw. Everything about him radiated raw, wild masculinity. Even from a few steps away, I could feel it, that same clean, sharp scent I'd noticed in his bedroom that night. I took a deep breath, ready to greet him. After all, I still needed to propose my plan about being husband and wife in name only. Better to stay on good terms. But before I could open my mouth, he walked right past me, like I was invisible.
He went straight to Chunya.
"Chunya, I just caught this pheasant. Take it home for your family to try." He handed her one of the birds. She beamed. "Thank you, Brother Jinya. Why don't you bring Auntie Zeng and Duo to our house for dinner tonight?" "No thanks. Enjoy the chicken. I'm heading home." His voice was cool and clipped. He turned around and came face to face with me. I was standing right there, arms crossed, glaring at the back of his head. My eyes were practically boring holes through his skull. I saw something flicker across his face. His fingers trembled slightly. His Adam's apple bobbed. I softened my expression and prepared to say hello. Be the bigger person. Stay civilized. But before I could get a single word out, he looked away, jaw tight, and walked right past me again. Not one word. Not even a nod. Just strode off like I didn't exist. "Are you serious?" I stood there, stunned, then furious. I stamped my foot on the ground. I wanted to scoop up a basin of cold water and dump it over his head. "Xiao Jinya, who do you think you are?" I couldn't even get a basic hello. I understood not liking your arranged wife, but this was just rude. We were going to live under the same roof. Would it kill him to acknowledge my existence? I crouched down, gave the remaining clothes a few angry slaps in the water, wrung them out, and marched home with my basin. Chunya watched the whole thing with obvious satisfaction. In her mind, this only confirmed what she wanted to believe. Jinya didn't like his new wife at all. When Jinya got home, Duo came barreling out of the house and threw herself at his legs. Brother, she babbled, clinging to him. His mother came out smiling. "Jinya, you're back." He set the pheasants down by the wall, bent over, and kissed Duo's soft cheek. His voice went gentle, completely different from the cold tone he'd used with everyone else. Duo, let go of brother. I need to wash my hands." Duo spotted the twitching pheasants on the ground and immediately forgot about him, crouching down to poke at the birds with wide-eyed fascination. His mother scooped water into the wash basin for him. The washing area was under the eaves outside the kitchen, bricks stacked with a flat stone on top, a rope strung above with towels hanging from it. As Jinya washed his face, his eyes drifted to a pink striped towel on the line. It carried a faint, clean fragrance. That same scent. His mother spoke up. "Listen, you've already married her. No matter how you feel, you can't treat her coldly. You understand." He splashed cold water on his face. He'd had a few days to think it through. The marriage was done. The money was spent. Divorce would ruin a young woman's reputation. And she hadn't done anything wrong. This whole mess was on him. He wouldn't fulfill any husband duties. They'd just live together politely. That would be enough. Then Duo jumped up, pointing at the gate. Sispov. I stepped through the doorway carrying my laundry basin. When I saw Duo, my icy expression thawed. Duo, I called softly. These past 2 days, she and I had become inseparable. She wasn't afraid of me at all. She'd grab my legs and call me Sispov all day long. I didn't even mind when she wiped her runny nose on my clothes. I loved her innocent, goofy sweetness. His mother tapped Genia's arm. Your wife is back. Genia turned around, and our eyes met for the first time in his own yard. He froze. I could swear his heart stopped for a second. His mother jumped in cheerfully. Qingyan, this is Genia. This is your first time meeting, right? I shook my head.
No, it's not.
We already ran into each other at the river. I kept my voice calm, but I couldn't help the pout forming on my lips. He just didn't bother greeting me. Walked right past me like I was invisible. His mother's face fell. She smacked his back and scrambled to cover for him. What's wrong with you, face blind? Can't even recognize your own wife. I gave him a nice, cold eye roll and turned my back to hang up the laundry. Let him stew in that. Behind me, I heard him stammering to his mother.
Mom, how is she?
He was completely short-circuited. I didn't understand why at the time. What I didn't know was that his friend Jijia had told him his mother arranged for him to marry Chen Xiaomeng. Nobody ever told him the bride had been switched to me. He had no idea I was his wife until this exact moment. His mother pulled him into the kitchen and shut the door. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught enough. Qingyan is beautiful. She's a teacher. Our family is lucky she married in at all. What could you possibly find wrong with her? Mom, Jijia said you arranged a match with Chen Xiaomeng. How is it her? Don't even mention that Xiaomeng girl. She stole her own sister's fiancé and married him instead. The family couldn't return the bride price, so they sent Qingyan as a substitute. If that hadn't happened, you think you'd ever have a chance with a girl like her? I finished hanging the clothes and went inside to work on my lesson plans for next semester. His mother grabbed Duo and a basket and headed out to dig wild vegetables, deliberately leaving us alone. On her way out, she elbowed Genia and nodded toward the house. Go make things right with your wife. I sat at the table in the main room, head down, writing with my fountain pen. But I kept sneaking glances through the window at the yard. That man was a mess out there. He fed the chickens 3 times. He poured so much water into the rabbit cage it was overflowing. He stroked the rabbit's fur until there was practically none left. Then I saw him stop at the clothesline. My clothes were hanging there, pink, white, yellow, swaying in the summer breeze. Among them was a certain small item with a rounded shape and embroidered flowers. His ears turned bright red. He marched to the wash basin and splashed cold water on his face several times. Finally, he went into the kitchen, poured a bowl of water, stirred in a spoonful of wild honey, and carried it toward me. I heard him come in, but didn't look up. My grip on the pen tightened. His tall shadow fell over my desk. He set the honey water down in front of me, then carefully moved it further away so it wouldn't drip on my books. His eyes traced slowly down my face, across my fingers, along my handwriting on the paper. Want some water? His voice came out rough and slightly shaky. Oh, so now he wanted to be nice? After ignoring me at the river like I was a ghost? His mother definitely scolded him. Thank you, I said flatly. I finally looked up at him. His dark eyes met mine, dropped briefly to my lips, then darted away in panic. The silence stretched. Your handwriting is very nice, he managed. Thank you. You can sit down. He immediately sat in the chair right next to me, like an obedient dog given a command. I frowned slightly. You're blocking the light. Could you sit across from me instead? Oh, okay. He moved to the opposite side and sat with both hands on his knees, back perfectly straight. This enormous man who could shoulder a 200-pound boar was perched there like one of my well-behaved 5th graders. I almost laughed but forced myself to keep a straight face. I set down my pen and got serious. I know this marriage was arranged by your mother, without you knowing. Don't worry, I don't like you either. I was forced into this. My stepmother made me come. He said nothing. His big hands gripped his knees tighter, his expression darkening. I continued. My stepmother treats me badly. My stepsister wants to ruin me. My father does nothing. I didn't want to stay in that house anymore, so I agreed to marry in Xiaomeng's place. My aunt's family had some trouble, and I've lost contact with them. If I could reach them, I would have left long ago. His brow furrowed. His long black lashes hid whatever was in his eyes. Xiao Jinya, I said firmly. Let's make an agreement. We'll be husband and wife on paper only. You give me a safe place to stay. In return, I'll take care of the housework, look after Duo and your mother. You can go hunting without worrying about things at home. Once I reconnect with my aunt's family, we'll divorce. You go your way, I'll go mine. I won't be a burden to you. I won't interfere with your life. Deal? Jinya didn't answer. His handsome face stayed dark and unreadable. I panicked. Given how much he'd resisted this marriage, what if he said no? What if he kicked me out? I quickly added, I can teach Duo to read and write. I'm a teacher, you know. And from what I've seen these past 2 days, she's not really that slow. She's just a bit delayed. If someone properly teaches her, she might even be able to attend school someday. I'll admit, I was overselling it. But I needed to dangle something in front of him. If he refused and told me to leave, where would I go? Sunlight slanted through the doorway, cutting a sharp line of light and shadow across the old table between us. His hawk-like eyes stared at me, sharp and unblinking. After a long silence, he spoke. I don't agree. My heart dropped. I'd laid everything bare. My cruel stepmother, my scheming stepsister, my useless father. And he still said no? The thought of having nowhere to go, of being thrown out of yet another home, hit me all at once. My eyes went hot. Tears welled up on my lashes, hanging there, ready to fall. Something shifted in his face. He looked completely lost, like a man who'd never seen a girl cry before and had no idea what to do. He scrambled from the opposite chair to the one beside me, his big frame blocking the line of light. His hand went up, then came back down awkwardly. He was panicking. Don't cry. The tears spilled. I sniffled and said in a small, shaky voice, I told you. I just need to stay here temporarily. I can teach your sister. I won't cause any trouble. The more I talked, the more wronged I felt. Fine, if you won't agree. I'll pack my things and leave right now. I was even planning to get the bride price back from my stepmother, so nobody owed anyone anything. But if this is how you treat me, I'll just walk out and your family loses both the money and the bride. I was crying and threatening him at the same time. My voice came out fierce, even through the tears. His eyes went wide with alarm. The moment I mentioned leaving, he caved completely. I agree. Is that okay? I sniffed and looked up at him through wet lashes. You really agree? Yes. I steadied my breathing. This stays between us. Your mother can't know. Nobody can know. Okay. I thought of something else. And if anyone bullies me, you have to protect me. No problem. I won't freeload. I'll pay you 15 yuan a month for food. That should be enough. I don't eat much. And I'll chip in for groceries sometimes too. You don't need to. I do. I don't like owing people. He gave in again. Fine. He smiled. Satisfied. A dimple appeared on my cheek. He stared at my face for a few seconds, slightly dazed, then pushed the bowl of honey water closer to me. I collected this wild honey from the mountain. Try it. I lifted the bowl to my lips and took a small sip. Sweet warmth slid down my throat. My mood brightened instantly. I gave my new business partner a friendly smile. It's really sweet. His Adam's apple bobbed. A faint dark flush crept up his wheat-brown cheeks. Then it settled. No backing out, I said. Deal. I finally relaxed. For the first time since arriving, I felt truly safe. I looked at him with genuine gratitude. Minutes later, a frantic voice came from outside the yard. Jinya. It was Chunya's mother, Qingmei. She ran up gasping, hands on her knees. Hurry to the east slope. Your mother and Duo are being bullied. I shot up from my chair. Jinya, and I locked eyes for 1 second. Before he could say anything, I was already at his side. Let's go. Now, at the slope near the fields, a crowd of villagers had gathered. In the middle stood my mother-in-law, eyes red, clutching her bamboo basket. Duo clung to her leg, face white as paper, trembling from head to toe. Facing them was a big, loud woman named Jiang Runsheng, hands on her wide hips, screaming at the top of her lungs. "You shameless woman, Zheng Yumei. You had the nerve to destroy my watermelon field. I worked so hard tending those vines, and you nearly ruined every last one." I looked at the field. Watermelons lay smashed and rotting. Vines were ripped apart. It was a disaster. My mother-in-law's knuckles were white around the basket handle. "I didn't do it. I was just picking wild vegetables along the path with Duo." Jiang Runsheng rolled up her sleeves. "Don't lie. I've seen you creeping around here before. The vines didn't pull themselves up. I finally caught you red-handed." That's when I stepped through the crowd. "What proof do you have that my mother-in-law did this?" Jiang moved in front of his mother and sister, shielding them. His eyes locked onto the woman like a predator's. She flinched at his stare but recovered quickly. Too many witnesses for him to actually hit her, she figured. She doubled down. "Proof? Everyone knows she's held a grudge against me for years. When I had my third baby, the midwife only came to my house first because my husband got to her faster. Then your mother had a difficult birth and the baby came out simple in the head." She jabbed a finger at Duo. "She's resented me ever since. Her husband used to distribute game meat around the village and always gave my family the least. Now she sees my watermelons growing well and she's jealous, so she comes here to wreck them." She spun dramatically to face the crowd, slapped her thigh, and wailed. "Those melons were going to pay for my children's school fees. Now everything is destroyed. How am I supposed to survive?" The villagers started murmuring. Some thought the old grudge was real. Others said that, even so, destroying someone's crops was wrong. A few shook their heads and said my mother-in-law didn't seem like the type, but the evidence looked bad. My mother-in-law's face was ashen. Her voice shook with frustration. "I didn't do any of this. I was just digging wild vegetables." Jiang Runsheng wasn't done. Her voice turned truly vicious. "And don't blame anyone for your idiot daughter. Your husband died young because your family killed too many animals hunting. Heaven punished you. Took your man early and gave you a brain-dead child." My mother-in-law shook with rage. Duo whimpered against her leg. Genia's neck veins bulged. His fists clenched until his knuckles cracked. He took a massive step forward, murder in his eyes. He was about to flatten this woman. I shot my arm out and blocked him. I'd heard enough to understand what was going on. I grabbed Genia's arm and whispered, "Don't be reckless." Then I stepped forward and faced Jiang Runsheng head-on. By your logic, everyone who eats chicken, duck, or fish has racked up heavenly debts too. Hunting is honest work, same as any butcher selling meat, earning a living with your own two hands. The way I see it, you're just a bully who picks on widows and children. My mother-in-law is kind and gentle. She doesn't argue with you because she's decent, not because she's guilty. Don't mistake her kindness for weakness. Behind me, I heard my mother-in-law finally let her tears fall. Jiang Runsheng crossed her arms and sneered down at me. She was a full head taller. "So, you're the new wife? Marrying into the Xiao family, you must have the worst luck in 8 lifetimes." That pushed Jiang over the edge. In one fluid motion, he drew a short knife from his belt and slashed it past her ear. A strand of her hair floated to the ground. "Say one more word, and I'll end you," she screamed. "Murder. He's trying to kill me." Jiang lunged forward, but I blocked him again, shooting him a look. His chest heaved, nostrils flaring, but he forced himself to stop. I knew that trading insults with a woman like this would only play into her hands. I stayed calm. "Stop screaming. You keep saying my mother-in-law destroyed your field. Show me the evidence." "Evidence?" I caught her right here. "That's my evidence," she called into the crowd. "Tali, come tell everyone. Haven't you seen Zheng Yumei lurking around my field lately?" A woman stepped out from the crowd. I recognized her, the one from the river this morning, riding on the back of the bicycle. She was my stepmother's brother's wife. That's right. My husband's been driving me into town a lot lately, and every time we pass by, I see her wandering around this area. The crowd erupted in murmurs. I turned to my mother-in-law. Her lips trembled with frustration. After spending these past few days with her, I knew without a shred of doubt that this gentlewoman would never do something like this. I faced Tally. You saw my mother-in-law walking nearby. Did you actually see her pulling up vines or destroying watermelons with your own eyes? Tally shrank back.
Well,
No, I didn't. I raised my voice, so everyone could hear. You all heard that. She never witnessed anything. That's not evidence, that's gossip. If walking past someone's field makes you a suspect, then nobody in this village should ever set foot on a shared path again. You need to catch a thief with stolen goods in hand. Without real proof, you're just slandering an innocent person. Villagers started murmuring in agreement. She's got a point. You can't accuse someone without proof. Yang Chunfeng puffed out her chest. I'm not wrong. Everyone knows the Xiao family has a grudge against mine. If it wasn't her, then who? Anyway, half my field is ruined. Unripe melons, destroyed. If your family doesn't pay me for the damage, this isn't over, so that was the real game. She wanted a scapegoat to cover her losses. I stopped arguing and crouched down instead. I grabbed some of the damaged vines and studied them carefully. The stems had tiny, jagged bite marks, the kind left by rodent-like teeth. The breaks were messy and uneven, nothing like what a person's hands would produce. I traced the trail of destruction. It ran in a continuous line from the field all the way toward the mountain forest. I had my answer. I looked up at Jinya and gestured for him to examine the ground. He bent down, studied the tracks and gnaw marks, then straightened up. Badgers, he said flatly. This is peak season for them. I pointed out the evidence to the crowd. Look, the damage runs in one continuous path from here straight to the forest. If my mother-in-law had done this, she would have come from the village road, not from the mountain. And human feet don't leave tracks like these. These are clearly animal trails, something heavy and low dragged through here. Yang Chunfeng refused to give up. Then why was my field the only one hit? Jinya's friend Fong Jijia spoke up. Badgers love melons more than anything. If you've never grown watermelons before, you wouldn't know. Every summer they come down from the hills at night to eat. My family used to grow sweet melons and got raided every year. An older villager backed him up. He's right. When I grew melons, I had to guard against animals every night. Got so tired of it I quit planting altogether. A woman in the crowd who'd clearly had enough of Yang Chunfeng chimed in. Chunfeng, you're obviously looking for someone to blame. Your field got wrecked by badgers, and you're trying to make the Xiao family pay for it. Where's the fairness in that? Yang Chunfeng sputtered, her face turning red. I didn't know about badgers. I've never grown melons before. I didn't let her off the hook. You didn't know, had no real evidence, and yet you stood here publicly accusing and humiliating my mother-in-law. You owe her an apology. Apologize? I didn't lay a hand on her. Why should I apologize? I raised my voice. You didn't touch her? You slandered her in front of the whole village. You terrified my little sister-in-law. Look at that child's face, white as chalk, shaking from head to toe. And you say you didn't do anything? Don't think just because my mother-in-law is a gentle person that you can push her around. Let me tell you something. My husband has a bad temper. If I hadn't held him back today, he would have beaten you senseless. When I said my husband, Jinya's eyebrow twitched. He turned to look at me. I caught his gaze and bit my lip, suddenly self-conscious. I wasn't usually this fierce. I rarely argued with anyone, but today was different. I couldn't stand watching someone bully the woman who'd shown me nothing but warmth since the day I arrived. And honestly, having Jinya standing right there, tall, broad, radiating danger, gave me all the courage I needed. With a man like that beside me, I had nothing to fear. Apologize to my mother. Jinya's voice cut through the air like ice. His eyes locked onto Yang Chunfeng with a look that could peel paint off walls. She shuffled forward reluctantly and muttered at my mother-in-law. Sorry about that. I squeezed my mother-in-law's hand and shook my head. That apology only covers the false accusation about the field. You also insulted the Xiao family, mocked an innocent child with a disability, and called her terrible names. You need to bow properly and apologize again. Don't push your luck, Yang Chunfeng snapped. I looked around at the watching villagers. Everyone here heard what she said. She called my little sister-in-law a moron and a retard. Doesn't that deserve a proper apology? Yang Chunfeng's teeth clenched. In the past, whenever Jinya was away, she'd freely mock and belittle my mother-in-law, who never fought back. She clearly hadn't expected the Xiao family to suddenly have a daughter-in-law with a sharp tongue who wouldn't take it lying down. My mother-in-law tugged my hand gently, wanting to let it go. She didn't like making enemies in the village. I patted her hand and whispered, "Mom, it's okay. We didn't do anything wrong. She bullied you on purpose, and we deserve to have this set right. That one word, Mom." I saw it melt her completely. Jinya lost patience. He stepped forward, grabbed Yang Chunfeng by the collar with one powerful hand, and pressed his knife against her neck. "Bow and apologize to my mother." Now, that terrified her into compliance. She bent at the waist toward my mother-in-law. "Yume, we're all from the same village. I speak without thinking. Don't hold it against me." "Mom, do you forgive her?" I asked. She nodded. The lesson had been taught. And with Jinya and me standing up for her so fiercely today, nobody in this village would dare bother her or duo again. I left Yang Chunfeng with a final warning. This ends here because my mother-in-law is generous. If there's a next time, it won't be resolved so easily. I took my mother-in-law's arm. "Let's go home." Jinya shot one last murderous glare at Yang Chunfeng, slid his knife back into its sheath, scooped duo up with one arm, and followed us home. Back at the house, I helped my mother-in-law sit on the Kong to rest. The ordeal had taken a toll. Her chest felt tight, and her color was bad. Jinya cooked porridge and boiled eggs, brought a bowl to her bedside. She managed half a bowl and half an egg, took her medicine, and went to sleep early. At the dinner table, Jinya mashed an egg into porridge for duo and set out her little bowl and spoon so she could feed herself. Then he placed an egg beside my hand. "For you." I didn't refuse. There were 4 eggs, one for each of us. We were living under the same roof, no need for empty politeness. I was peeling my egg when his low voice broke the quiet. "Thank you." I knew he meant what happened this afternoon. "You're welcome." Then I thought about that knife at Yang Chunfeng's throat and felt I should say something. "You need to not be so impulsive. Don't pull a knife so easily. If you accidentally cut someone even a scratch, they could use it against you." "Got it, wifey," he said, head down. My ears burned instantly. I glanced at duo, then at my mother-in-law's closed door, and hissed, "Nobody else is around right now. You don't have to call me that. We were supposed to be acting." No audience meant no performance needed. He gave a flat in response. But all through dinner, I caught him sneaking glances at me. I pretended not to notice, but it was hard to ignore. When we finished, he stood up and gathered the dishes. "Wifey, I'll go wash these. I told you to stop calling me that." I glared at him, ears on fire again. "Got it, wifey." He carried the dishes into the kitchen. I gave up. Maybe it was better to let him practice, so he wouldn't slip up in front of other people. After dark, I took duo to the little bathing shed in the corner of the yard, just a simple shelter with an old curtain for privacy. I lathered her up with soap, wiped her nose without a second thought, and washed her round little face with warm water. She was a handful. She blew soap bubbles off her arms and splashed me from head to toe. I scooped water over her while trying to keep her still, patient the whole time. I pinched her nose playfully. "If you keep being naughty, I won't give you baths anymore." She seemed to understand that one. She grabbed my arm and babbled urgently, "Sispov." I smiled, dried her off, and dressed her in clean clothes. Duo, you need to behave. Your mama's legs are bad. When she bathes you, you can't splash around like this, okay?" No response. She didn't understand. I took her hand, pushed aside the curtain, and stepped out of the bathing shed, and walked right into Jinya coming out of the kitchen. He saw me and froze. Then his face turned deep red. I felt his eyes on me, and instinctively looked down at myself. Oh no! What splashing had soaked my shirt completely through. The wet fabric clung to my skin, outlining my waist. Worse, The top buttons of my blouse had come undone at some point, the fabric pulled to one side, leaving far too much exposed. He'd seen everything. This had never happened to me before. Heat flooded my face, and I blurted out, "Pervert." He snapped out of it, spun around, and dove back into the kitchen. In his panic, he forgot to duck, and his forehead slammed into the door frame with a tremendous bang. I didn't care. I clutched my shirt closed, shot him one last furious look, and dragged Duo back to my room as fast as I could. In the kitchen, I could hear nothing for a long time. Just silence. I didn't know it then, but he was standing in there holding his throbbing head, replaying that single word in his mind. Pervert. And smiling. That night, I put Duo to bed with me and told Jinya to sleep in his old room on the other side of the curtain. The house was dead silent. So quiet I could hear his breathing through the wall. I lay there thinking about the day. I felt a little guilty for calling him a pervert earlier. He hadn't been peeking on purpose. It was just bad timing. Then the curtain rustled open. I lifted my head from the pillow and saw Jinya standing there, a tall shadow in the moonlight. My heart jumped. "What are you doing?" I whispered. "Taking a piss." He glanced at me once and walked straight through my room toward the yard. His room had no separate exit. He had to pass through mine every time he went in or out.
Taking a piss.
Could this man be any more crude? I grew up in the city. Hearing a man say something that blunt made my face go hot in the dark. And the night was so quiet that I could hear everything from outside the yard wall, every last sound of him going about his business. I yanked the blanket over my face and tried not to listen. After he came back, it took me a long time to fall asleep. The next morning, I walked outside yawning and found Jinya already up. He'd cooked corn porridge, steamed buns, and set out salted duck eggs. The sky was overcast, and a chilly wind had knocked some of my clothes off the line. He was picking them up, dusting them off. Then I saw what was in his hand.
My bra.
Dangling from his big, rough fingers. I froze. "Xiao Jinya, what are you doing?" He looked up at me calmly and held it out. "Your tit cover fell. I picked it up for you." Tit
Cover.
I shattered into a million pieces. I marched over, face burning, snatched it from his hand, grabbed every last piece of clothing from the line, and fled inside. Sitting on the Kong folding clothes, I silently cursed this impossibly blunt man. Taking a piss, tit cover. How could he say these things with a completely straight face? Did he have no shame at all? Duo woke up and I dressed her. My mother-in-law was still sleeping. Jinya checked on her quietly and saw her breathing was steady, so he closed her door and left her to rest. He set out 3 bowls of corn porridge. I tied Woodward's little bib on, and the 3 of us ate in silence. I stirred my porridge, working up the nerve. Finally I said, "Xiao Jinya." He set down his chopsticks. "What is it, wifey? Could you try to speak more politely?" He looked confused. I lowered my voice, cheeks warm. "Like last night, you could say use the bathroom instead of what you said. And that thing this morning. You don't have to call it what you called it." He stared at me, genuinely puzzled. I could practically see the wheels turning to him. Those words described exactly what they were. Why would anyone say it differently? But he didn't argue. "Got it, wifey." I was about to remind him again not to call me wifey when nobody was around, but Duo held up her empty bowl. "Brother." Food. He stood immediately and went to refill her bowl. The moment passed. When he sat back down, he told me he was heading into town to sell his hunting haul. I asked if he'd be back for lunch. He wasn't sure. "Your mom might sleep a while. I'll watch Duo," I said. "You need me to bring anything back?" "No, I'm fine." After breakfast, I reached for the dishes, but he was faster, scooped everything up and washed it all in the kitchen before I could protest. Then he hauled 2 buckets of well water into the kitchen so we wouldn't have to fetch any. Fed the chickens and ducks. Checked every little thing. Then he came back inside holding 50 yuan. He held it out to me. I stared. He explained, "If I don't make it back by noon, take everyone to a restaurant in the village. Don't bother cooking." I pushed his hand away. "I can cook? And 50 yuan for lunch?" Who did he think he was, some rich man? He eyed my soft, pale hands with obvious doubt about my cooking abilities. When I wouldn't take the money, he just set it on the table. Listen to me. Don't trouble yourself with the fire and stove. Eating out is easier. A bicycle bell rang from outside. His friend Fong Jijia parked at the gate and hollered, "Jinya, you ready? When are we leaving?" Jinya walked out. "Right now." I followed him to the yard. Jijia saw me and his jaw nearly hit the ground. "What the? Who's this?" "My wife." Jinya said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then he introduced me. "This is my childhood friend, Fong Jijia." He shot Jijia a sharp look, a warning not to say anything stupid. I stood by the door and nodded politely. "Hello." Jijia kept staring at me with his mouth hanging open, eyes round as coins. Jinya loaded all the game and mountain goods into burlap sacks, slung them over his shoulder, and looked at me. "I'm heading out." I said quietly. He walked over to Jijia, who was still gawking at me. Without a word, Jinya grabbed his friend's head and physically turned it away from me. "Let's go." After Jinya left with Jijia, I heard them talking as they walked away. Jijia was asking how his wife had turned into a goddess. Jinya told him to stop staring at me. Their voices faded down the road. My mother-in-law woke up not long after. I served her the warm porridge Jinya had left on the stove. "Mom, are you feeling better?" She smiled and waved it off. "I'm fine now. Thank you for looking after Duo last night." Her color was much improved. I felt relieved. I didn't know the details of Jinya's day in town until later, but here's what I'd eventually piece together. He and Jijia rode to the big market at Erlajing to sell his haul. Jinya left Jijia manning the mountain goods stall while he carried 3 wild pheasants to the state-run restaurant nearby. The head chef there, Old Sue, had been his regular buyer for years. Sue gave fair prices, paid on the spot, and could handle large quantities. A few days earlier, he'd bought Jinya's entire 200-pound wild boar at a premium rate when the town restaurants only offered a fraction of the price. Old Sue was impressed with the pheasants and bought them happily. He also told Jinya something important. The restaurant's upstairs private rooms were packed with government officials who craved wild game, and Jinya's current supply couldn't keep up with demand. If he wanted to make real money, he'd need to think bigger. Jinya took that advice seriously. They sold everything by early afternoon, around 50 yuan total, and Jinya split the mountain goods money evenly with Jijia since they'd gathered it together. Jijia tried to refuse, but Jinya stuffed the bills into his pocket. Jijia mentioned that Jinya had talked before about growing a mountain goods business. Now that he'd married the girl he'd been pining for, and she was a city-raised girl with city standards, wouldn't expenses go up? Jinya admitted the business idea wasn't simple. Too many complications. He needed to plan carefully before making any moves. After lunch, Jinya stopped at a medicine shop to buy herbs for his mother's health. Then he walked into the biggest supply cooperative in town. He bought the most expensive loose biscuits they had and a bag of white rabbit milk candies. Then his eyes landed on the glass display case full of hair accessories. Jijia caught him staring and teased, "Buying something pretty to win your new wife's heart." Jinya didn't answer. The saleswoman noticed him looking and asked who it was for. "My wife." "How old is she?" 19. "Oh. Then try a headband. Young city girls all love these." She held up a white headband. "This one is trendy and elegant. Your wife would look lovely in it." In Jinya's mind, my face must have appeared because something flickered in his dark eyes. "I'll take it." On the ride home, Jijia sat on the back of the bicycle shouting in disbelief. "Your wife is only 19? She's even younger than Chuanya. She's basically still a kid. How could you?" Jinya got so annoyed he deliberately steered into a pothole. Jijia bounced hard and shut up. At the edge of the village, Jinya sent Jijia home and walked the rest of the way alone. He kept pulling out the little bag with the headband, looking at it, putting it back. Then, as he neared our gate, he stopped. I was standing outside the courtyard door in my yellow dress, hair loose on my shoulders. And facing me was Jiang Runsheng, my former fiancé. He wore a neat striped shirt and black trousers, holding a briefcase.
Polished. Brupe.
Handsome in that educated, refined way. Standing together, we probably looked like a matching pair straight out of a painting. I didn't notice Jinya approaching. I didn't see the way his eyes went dark or how his jaw tightened, or how he pressed his lips into a hard line before forcing himself to walk toward us, as if nothing was wrong. Jiang Runsheng showed up at my gate. Of all places. He was doing summer fire prevention rounds for the broadcasting station, going door to door through the villages. He claimed it was a coincidence, but I knew better. He'd been looking for me. His eyes lit up the moment he saw me. Mine stayed cold. Qingyan, are you doing okay? I'm fine.
Don't worry about me. How can you be fine?
Xiao Jinya is an uneducated brute. What could you two possibly talk about? I wanted to roll my eyes into the back of my skull. I hated men who couldn't take a hint. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. You're Xiaomeng's husband now. Focus on her. I don't want to focus on her. I don't even like her. Qingyan, you know how I feel. I've loved you since school. That night with Xiaomeng meant nothing. She seduced me when I was drunk. You're the only one I've ever loved. Stop. I'm married now. You're married. Can't we just leave it at that? If you're willing, I'll divorce Xiaomeng right now and come back to you. Inside the house, my mother-in-law was watching through the window, holding duo, looking frantic. I nearly laughed from sheer disbelief. Jiang Runsheng, are you dreaming? How many times do I have to tell you? I don't like you. I do not like you. Then who do you like? Don't tell me you actually have feelings for that rough hunter. I didn't know Jinya was already standing behind me under the trees, listening. I didn't know his fists were clenched, that he'd been about to step forward and drag Runsheng away, but then stopped, frozen, waiting for my answer. I crossed my arms. My voice came out strong and certain.
Yes.
He's my husband. Why wouldn't I like him? He's better than you in every way. After his father died, he held this family together alone. He takes care of his sick mother and his little sister. He's a real man with real backbone. I love him to death, and I'm going to give him 8 sons. Behind me, I didn't see Jinya's fists slowly unclench. Didn't see the complicated look that passed through his dark eyes. Runsheng turned pale with anger. He clearly thought I was just saying it to hurt him. Then he spotted Jinya's massive frame behind me and stiffened. You're not thinking clearly right now. We'll talk about this later. He turned and hurried away. I felt the weight of someone's gaze on my back. I turned around and there was Jinya, staring at me. My stomach dropped. How long had he been there? How much had he heard? You're back? I managed, trying to sound casual. He walked past me with a flat and went inside. Duo came running out and threw herself at his legs. He scooped her up, kissed her cheek, and carried her into the house without another word. I stood there feeling terrible. Having my ex-fiancé confess his love at my in-laws' front door was mortifying. Thankfully, the Xiao house was isolated enough that no neighbors had witnessed it. But still, no man would be comfortable seeing that, even if he had no feelings for his wife. I felt guilty, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. Inside, Jinya set a packet of Chinese medicine on the table for his mother. She immediately tried to smooth things over. That young man just now was here doing government outreach for the village. Jinya said. I shot my mother-in-law a grateful look. Then he opened a bag and pulled out expensive biscuits and white rabbit milk candies. His mother waved me over.
Come eat, child.
Jinya bought these in town. I hesitated. Xiaomeng had told me the Xiao family was dirt poor, yet since I'd arrived, there'd been meat at every meal and now store-bought sweets. Was her information wrong? I don't really eat snacks. You all enjoy them, I said politely. Mom can't eat sweets because of her health. These are for you. Sit down. My mother-in-law took the medicine into the kitchen. I figured the candy was probably for Duo. White rabbit was expensive. I didn't feel right eating someone else's treats. I was about to go back to my room when Jinya's cold voice stopped me. I bought them for you. You're not going to eat them? For me? I pointed at myself, genuinely surprised. Duo was too heavy. The doctor said no sweets. Mom has chronic issues and can't have sugar either. They're for you. A warm, flustered feeling rushed through me. I sat back down at the table.
Then.
Thank you. His face was a little dark. He unwrapped a milk candy halfway and held it out to me. I took it, thanked him again, and looked up to find Duo staring at the candy with her mouth practically watering. I couldn't eat candy in front of a child. That felt wrong. But Jinya had already broken a biscuit in half and was holding it above Duoduo's head, out of reach. With a perfectly serious expression, he told her, "Look how fat you are. You'd float if we dropped you in water. You get half a biscuit. Everything else belongs to your sister-in-law." He tapped her little nose. "Understood." She jumped for the biscuit, grunting. He kept it high until she mumbled, "Understood." Only then did he hand it over. Satisfied that Duo had her share, I popped the candy into my mouth. Rich, creamy sweetness melted across my tongue. I chewed slowly, sneaking glances at Jinya, wondering why on earth he'd bought me treats. "You're not having any?" I asked casually. As the words left my mouth, a tiny thread of drool escaped the corner of my lips. I sucked it back in frantically, face exploding with heat. Jinya looked away. He sat down at the table and shook his head. "I don't like sweets." "Oh. Then why did you buy them for me?" He dodged the question entirely. Instead, his deep eyes fixed on mine, and he said, "So, I hear you're going to give me 8 sons." I choked on my own spit and coughed, face burning. "You heard that." I pressed my lips together and mumbled, "I was just saying that to get rid of Jiang Runsheng." "Don't take it seriously." Jinya stared at me in silence for what felt like forever. Then slowly, "Got it." I fiddled with the candy wrapper, trying to lighten the mood. "I put your 50 yuan back on your bedside. We had noodles and steamed cured meat for lunch at home. Didn't go out to eat. How'd the selling go today?" "Smooth, smooth. Where do you sell your mountain goods in town?" "Erlajing." My eyes lit up. "Erlajing? My high school was right near there." "I know. I used to pass by it all the time. Then how come I never saw you? Even if you did, you wouldn't have recognized me." I nodded. "That's true, I guess." That night after washing up, my mother-in-law pulled Duo into her own room. She told us to get some rest early and gave Jinya a meaningful look. I pretended not to notice and touched my nose. "Good night, Mom." By the time Jinya locked the yard gate and bolted the front door, I was already lying down, with the cloth curtain between our rooms pulled shut tight. I imagine he paused at the sight. Who exactly was I guarding against? What I didn't know was that on the other side of that curtain, Jinya was lying awake again, just like the night before. He'd taken out the white headband he'd bought me in town, turned it over in his hands, and decided he had no right to give it to me. He was afraid his feelings would scare me off. He tucked it under his folded blankets. And he was remembering. Years ago, when he was 13 and I was 7 or 8, he'd gotten into a fight with some boys near the school. His nose was bleeding, his clothes were torn. Then it started pouring rain. The other boys ran home. He lived too far away and couldn't go back inside, so he stood alone against a bare wall, rain hammering down on him. A tiny girl appeared out of nowhere, holding an enormous lotus leaf over his head like an umbrella. She wore a little floral dress and 2 thin braids. She was so short she had to stand on tiptoe to reach. "Big brother. Why are you bleeding?" Her voice was soft as cotton candy. She pulled a clean handkerchief from her pocket, stood on her toes, and gently wiped the blood from his nose. "Here, take this so it won't bleed again." She pressed the handkerchief into his hand. "And take the lotus leaf too, so you won't get rained on going home." Then someone called out, "Qingyan, I have an umbrella, let's walk home together. Coming, Brother Runsheng." She turned back to him one last time. "You should hurry home too, big brother. If you stay in the rain too long, you'll get sick." Then she ran off into the curtain of rain and disappeared. After that day, her name carved itself into his heart and never left. That was the boy on the road that dark night, the one who walked me home through the graveyard when I was 7. That was him. I just never knew. He lay in the moonlight, pressing down the restlessness inside him. He wouldn't tell me his secret. He was afraid it would frighten me. And he understood I'd just come out of a broken engagement. I needed time to heal. He was willing to wait. Wait until I forgot about Jiang Runsheng completely. Wait until I chose to be his wife for real. He had all the patience in the world. Meanwhile, things at Xiaomeng's new home were falling apart. She'd spent an entire week waking before dawn, cooking every meal, cleaning the pig pen, sweeping the cattle shed, feeding the animals. Not a single person in the Jiang family thanked her or showed her any warmth. Her in-laws gave her cold faces. Runsheng's older sister ignored her. At night, Runsheng turned his back to her in bed without a word. She'd schemed her way into this family expecting an easy, comfortable life. Instead, she was working like a servant and getting nothing in return. Finally, she snapped and refused to cook. That morning, village chief Jiang found the kitchen cold and dark. His wife refused to get up, saying she wasn't about to cook and be treated like Xiaomeng's maid. The old man grumbled, and Runsheng ended up heading to work on an empty stomach. Xiaomeng seized her chance. She told Runsheng she wanted to go into town with him, eat breakfast together, shop for a few things, ride home with him after work. He tried to make excuses, told her the fields needed watering. She whined about how hard she'd been working, how her arms ached, how she did everything out of love for him. She wrapped her arms around his waist and pressed her face against his back. He sighed and gave in. She dug out her red wedding dress, tied a bright purple scarf around her neck, and preened in front of the mirror until she was satisfied. As they walked out together, they ran into Runsheng's older sister, Jiang Lanhua, brushing her teeth by the yard wall. Lanhua was 10 years older, married and living in town, staying the night at her parents' place. She'd spent half the night listening to her mother complain about Xiaomeng. Lanhua looked Xiaomeng up and down, the flashy red dress, the gaudy scarf, and smirked. "Where are you two off to?" "I thought there was a stage performance somewhere you were headed to. I didn't witness any of this directly, but I'd piece it together later from what others told me." That morning at the Jiang household, Xiaomeng came out wearing her red wedding dress and a flashy purple scarf, ready to accompany Runsheng into town. They bumped into his older sister Lanhua by the yard wall. Lanhua took one look at Xiaomeng's outfit and smirked. "I thought you were headed to perform on stage somewhere." Xiaomeng smoothed her scarf and played innocent, saying she just wanted to look presentable so people wouldn't say the Jiang family's new wife was sloppy. Lanhua ignored her completely and turned to Runsheng. "By the way, Qingyan asked me to hold a jar of snow cream for her at the supply co-op. It just came in. If you see her, let her know she can come pick it up." Xiaomeng's blood must have boiled. Lanhua was doing it on purpose, bringing up my name, asking Runsheng to pass me messages, knowing full well how awkward things were. Xiaomeng tried to shut it down politely, warning that people might gossip if Runsheng was seen doing favors for his ex-fiancé. Lanhua cut her down without blinking. Runsheng and Qingyan are both upstanding people. They've got nothing to hide. It's the ones who scheme behind closed doors and put on sweet faces who should worry about keeping their heads down. Xiaomeng swallowed her rage and grabbed Runsheng's arm. "Let's go, brother Runsheng." On the road, Runsheng told her to take off the purple scarf. She obeyed, though she hated it. She clung to his waist on the back of the bicycle, thrilled to be seen with him in public. They ate at a roadside restaurant, then Runsheng rode off to work at the broadcasting station, leaving Xiaomeng to wander the market alone. The moment he was out of sight, she tied the scarf right back on. Tomorrow was the traditional day for newlywed daughters to visit their families. Xiaomeng wanted to load up on expensive gifts to show off when she came back to our father's house, and to rub my face in her good fortune. While browsing, she spotted Chunya in the crowd. They started chatting, and Xiaomeng steered the conversation exactly where she wanted it, toward me. "I really worry about my little sister. How is she doing over there with that hunter? Do you live close to them?" Chunya told her what she'd seen. "Jinya doesn't like her. He didn't even come home on their wedding night. When he sees her, he barely speaks to her." A flash of delight crossed Xiaomeng's face, though she hid it quickly. Just as she'd hoped, my life at the Xiao house was miserable, exactly like it had been in her previous life. Then Xiaomeng went to work, spinning her web of lies with practiced skill. She put on her most pitiful expression and told Chunya her version of events. "Qingyan and I loved the same man and Runsheng chose me." She couldn't accept it, so out of spite, she insisted on marrying the man who was originally engaged to me. Before she left, she forced my poor mother to give her double the dowry I got. My mom emptied our family savings just to meet her demands. Chunya was outraged. "That's terrible. She's just using brother Jinya. She's always been like that," Xiaomeng sighed. "Stubborn and competitive. She'll do anything just to make me unhappy. You're too soft on her, Xiaomeng. People like that need to be put in their place." She's still my sister. As the older one, I can only be patient. Chunya walked away fuming, determined to tell Jinya everything, to expose what a selfish, awful person his new wife truly was. She believed every poisonous word, and that was exactly what Xiaomeng wanted. Chunya was simple-hearted and easily manipulated. With her spreading these lies in the village and inside the Xiao household, my life would only get harder. After their chat, Xiaomeng headed to the supply co-op and loaded up on gifts for tomorrow's visit: a crate of eggs, fancy pastries, canned fruit, premium white sugar, expensive cigarettes, and liquor for our father. She'd gotten 30 yuan from Runsheng that morning, every cent he had on him. She was already calculating her next moves. Runsheng earned 60 yuan a month at the broadcasting station, plus bonuses and holiday gifts. Before the marriage, he'd handed his wages to his mother. Now that Xiaomeng was his wife, she intended to take control of every penny. And whatever savings his mother had stashed away from his previous paychecks, she planned to get her hands on those too. Tonight's plan was clear in her mind. First, finally consummate the marriage. Then, while Runsheng was in a good mood, bring up the money. My stomach had been off the past couple of days. After 2 years of plain meals at my father's house, my body had adjusted to simple food. Now at the Xiao household, there was meat at every meal, and my gut couldn't keep up. I felt bloated and heavy. The problem was I couldn't refuse. My mother-in-law piled food into my bowl, like she was afraid I'd blow away in the wind. This morning after breakfast, I tried to wash the dishes, just to move around and help digest, but she shooed me out of the kitchen with a smile. The heavy farm work is too much for my legs, so cooking and cleaning is all I can do for you kids. Seeing you eat well and live well makes me happy. Don't fight me for these little chores. So I wandered the yard, sweeping here, tidying there, finding things to keep busy. Then I sat Duo down at the stone table to start her first real lesson. It wasn't easy at first. She couldn't sit still, squirming and fidgeting on the stone bench. So I changed my approach. I started with real objects: a broom, a chili pepper, some yellow beans, placing them in front of her one by one, teaching her to identify each thing. Once she'd memorized the objects, I opened a book and matched them to written words, character by character. While I taught, Jinya was hauling water for the kitchen. He wasn't wearing a shirt. His bronze skin gleamed, arms carrying 2 full wooden buckets without any strain, muscles taut and defined. I caught myself glancing at him a few times before quietly looking away. When the water tank was full, he toweled off, washed his face, and sat down right at our stone table. I was pointing at the notebook, reading softly. Apple. Duo repeated in her sweet, mushy voice. Apple, ant, green vegetable, green veggie. I felt his eyes on me. I looked up and found him watching with an unreadable expression. Why are you staring at me? Learning to read, he said, perfectly serious. You already know how to read. Your mom said you finished 6th grade. Haven't touched a book in years. Forgot everything. Might as well brush up. I was teaching Duo words like bunny and chili pepper. He did not need to brush up on those. He obviously just wanted to sit there and watch me, checking whether I could actually teach his sister properly. I wished he'd go hunt something and leave me alone. Eventually Duo ran out of patience, and I ended the lesson. As a reward, I drew a little watch on the back of her hand with my pen, then kissed her left cheek with a loud smack. Duo was so good today. You learned so many words. Tomorrow we'll learn more, and I'll draw you another big watch. She beamed down at her hand, grinning like a little flower in bloom. Then Jinya held out his arms. Come here, let brother hold you. She bounced into his lap. He teased her. Let brother wear your little watch for a bit. She instantly hid her hand behind her back, guarding it fiercely. He laughed a low, warm sound and pinched her cheek. Stingy little thing. Then he leaned down and kissed her left cheek too. My ears went hot. He'd watch me kiss her left cheek. He could have picked the other side. But no. My mother-in-law came out of the kitchen, drying her hands. Qingyan, tomorrow is your homecoming day. Have Jinya take you to the supply co-op in town to pick up some gifts. I've been hoping to skip the whole homecoming visit. But she was right. If I didn't follow proper customs, people would talk. Village gossip was merciless. I understand, Mom. Genia nodded. I'll bike you there later. No need, I can walk. Don't be stubborn. Town isn't close. You'd wear your feet out walking both ways. Besides, aren't I supposed to play the part? I lowered my head. Fine. Then my mother-in-law came back holding 50 yuan. She pressed it into my hand.
Take this.
Buy good things for the homecoming gifts. Get the nice ones. Mom, I have my own money. Please keep it. She stuffed the bills straight into my pocket before I could stop her. What's yours and mine? We're family. My money will all go to you young ones eventually. Even when I'm gone, whatever's left is for you too. I tried to fish the money out, but Genia spoke up. Mom's giving it to you. Just take it. I stopped arguing. I'd return it to him quietly later. I hadn't planned on spending much. I didn't feel like buying expensive gifts for that household. Just enough to satisfy appearances. But my mother-in-law held my hand and explained everything patiently. Homecoming is a big deal for a married daughter. If the gifts are too thin, people will say you're being mistreated at your husband's house. This is Genia's first time visiting your family with you. The gifts need to be generous. It shows respect to your family and puts you in a position of strength. Cigarettes, liquor, tea, candy, all in even numbers. No cutting corners. She paused and looked at Genia. You remember these rules too. Then she turned back to me, her voice gentle. I'm not nagging. I know you lost your mother young, and a stepmother can never replace her. I don't know if anyone ever taught you these customs, so I wanted to make sure you know. No matter how your stepmother behaves, our family's manners won't fall short. Let Genia escort you properly tomorrow. Get everything right. Show them that nobody can push you around anymore. Don't worry about the money, just make it dignified. My eyes stung. My fingers tightened around the bills in my pocket.
My voice came out thick.
I understand. Thank you, Mom. Genia borrowed a bicycle from Jijia and rode up to the gate. He planted one long leg on the ground and looked at me. Get on. I climbed onto the back seat and held on carefully. The bike rolled off toward town. The country road was nothing but dirt and potholes. Every bump jolted through my whole body. I gripped the edges of the seat, knuckles white. Summer wind carried his scent to me, clean and sharp like mountain pine. The bike hit a big rut and lurched hard. I almost flew off. Without thinking, I grabbed the hem of his shirt. Xiao Genia, can you please slow down? This road is so bumpy. Sure, he said, then kept going exactly the same speed. I was starting to think he didn't know how to ride. Every pothole on the road, he seemed to aim straight for it. Each time the bike bounced, my body pitched forward and my chest slammed into his broad, hard back. My face burned. When the bike steadied, I scooted back to put some distance between us. Then, another pothole. The bike lurched violently. I yelped, threw both arms around his waist, and held on for dear life. Xiao Genia, ride properly. Dirt roads are like this. Hold tight so you don't fall off. I had no choice but to cling to his solid waist. I swore to myself I was never riding with this man again. What I couldn't see from behind him was the smile he couldn't suppress, the corners of his mouth curling upward, higher and higher, the whole way to town. We finally made it to town after that nightmare ride. When I climbed off the bike, I couldn't help rubbing my sore chest. What an awful road. Genia turned around, looked at my chest for 2 seconds, and said slowly, sorry. Rough road. Must have hurt you. My face caught fire. I glared at him. Your riding skills are terrible. Wifey, I'm sorry. I'll practice more. Next time I won't bounce your. I lunged forward and slapped my hand over his mouth.
I've fine.
Please stop talking. He mumbled something into my palm. My hand apparently smelled like the cream I'd put on, sweet and soft. I saw his nostrils flare slightly before I let go. Some habits are just impossible to break. He'd been this crude his entire life. Expecting him to suddenly talk like a city gentleman was like expecting a wolf to learn table manners. I told myself to be patient. It wasn't forever. Before we entered the supply co-op, I pulled out the 50 yuan my mother-in-law had given me. This is your mom's money. Take it back. He frowned. I don't want it. Just hold it for her. When we eventually divorce, you can return it to her for me. Something dark flickered across his face. He didn't take the bills. Whoever gave it to you, return it yourself. He walked into the store ahead of me without another word. I didn't understand what I'd said wrong. I tucked the money back into my pocket and followed him in. The co-op was busy. It was the only large one for 10 villages. Jiang Chunhua was working behind the counter. She was Runsheng's older sister, but more importantly, she was my friend. She'd helped me get my teaching job at Guangming Elementary, and I'd never forgotten that kindness. Qing Yan, what brings you here? She smiled when she saw me. Chunhua, I thought you might have the day off. She noticed Jinya behind me. Is this the Xiao families? Yes, I nodded. She looked him over. Tall, muscular, sharp-featured, those dark eyes with their wolfish edge. He gave her a polite nod. I started introducing her. You probably don't know Chunhua, she's... Jinya cut in casually. I know. She's the sister of that ex-boyfriend you love to death. I whipped my head up and glared daggers at him. He pressed his lips together with a look that said, Sorry, shouldn't have said that. Chunhua smiled and asked if we were here for homecoming gifts. I said yes. Your sister just came through buying the same things. Her stuff is still sitting right here. She tilted her chin toward the counter. Apparently Xiaomeng had only bought single quantities of everything. Chunhua had kindly reminded her that gifts should come in pairs, and when Xiaomeng didn't have enough money, Chunhua covered the difference for her. Chunhua, I don't really know the customs. Could you pick out the right cigarettes, liquor, tea, and candy for me? My mother-in-law said everything needs to be in even numbers. Leave it to me. I'll make sure it's practical, dignified, and doesn't break the bank. She selected the same items in the same quantities as Xiaomeng's gifts. Since we were both going back to the same household on the same day, matching gifts would avoid any gossip. We were packing everything into net bags when Xiaomeng herself walked in. Her eyes locked onto Jinya and me instantly. She plastered on a fake surprised smile.
Qing Yan.
You're here too. I didn't feel like chatting. Jinya glanced at her once, cold and dismissive, and went back to loading the bags. He didn't like anyone I didn't like. Then I heard Xiaomeng's thoughts, and they made me freeze. Last life, Xiao Jinya didn't even come with me for the homecoming visit. I had to buy my own gifts with my own money. How come he's personally escorting Xiao Qingyan to shop last life? So Xiaomeng really was reborn. She'd lived a previous life and come back. It sounded insane, but then again, I could hear people's innermost thoughts. After that, nothing was too strange to believe. Xiaomeng eyed our purchases and frowned. She put on her concerned sister act. Qingyan, you don't need to pretend you can afford all this just to match me. I spent 40 or 50 yuan on my gifts. Don't strain yourself trying to compete. Jinya clicked his tongue in irritation. My voice went cool. You're overthinking it. Chunhua picked these for me. Nobody's competing with you. Xiaomeng turned to Chunhua. You should probably help my sister return some of those. You don't know the Xiao family situation. They're not well off. My sister is too proud to admit she can't afford it. Chunhua hesitated, not knowing the full picture. Qingyan, should I adjust? No need to return anything. We can afford it. I pulled the 50 yuan from my pocket and handed it to Chunhua. Add it up. And grab me 2 jars of snow cream too. Xiaomeng's face went pale. Her thoughts screamed in my head. Showing off with that measly dowry money? I'll make sure you cough up every last cent. The noise in my ears was getting irritating. I wrinkled my nose. What's that sound? Something yapping? Jinya glanced toward the door. Sounds like a stray dog barking outside. Chunhua handed me the snow cream just as Xiaomeng launched into her big sister lecture. Qingyan, I have to say something for your own good. Mom told me the Xiao family is struggling. Jinya's mother needs constant medicine, his sister has problems, and he doesn't even have a real job, just hunting. You should think about your husband and stop spending so freely. She paused to make sure everyone heard the next part. Now, my husband works at the broadcasting station. Very respectable. Over 60 yuan a month. But even I manage our money carefully. As wives, we can't be selfish. I stared at her, baffled by the audacity. Before I could respond, Jinya let out a cold laugh. Who told you my family is struggling? Xiaomeng waved her hand. Jinya, I understand men have pride. But don't overdo it. Your mother's medicine costs, your hunting income barely covers things. Have you ever lived in my house? His voice dropped to something freezing. The air around him turned menacing. Xiaoming's mouth snapped shut. You know my family's situation better than I do, he continued, each word cutting. What are you? A rat hiding in my walls. Couldn't steal anything useful, so now you're gnawing through the woodwork spreading nonsense. Xiaoming's face went scarlet. Xiao Jinya, I'm still your sister-in-law. Watch your mouth. My wife calls you sister, so I go along with it. The day she stops, you won't even rank as high as a rat to me. Chenhua was clearly trying not to smile. I felt a warm rush of gratitude. He was playing his role perfectly. Xiaoming forced herself calm, then tried a different angle with a nasty little smirk. Married just a few days and you're already this close? From what I heard, Qingyan didn't even want to marry you. And you didn't come home on your wedding night either. Doesn't sound like a happy match to me. My stomach tightened. She wasn't easy to fool. But Jinya's mind was faster than I expected. That's because I thought I was marrying you. That's why I didn't come home. Then he reached over, laid his arm casually across my shoulders, and looked at Xiaoming with lazy amusement. Your intelligence network needs some work. I fell for my wife at first sight. We've been sweet as honey since the wedding. Can't you see how happy she is? She's even filled out a little, to sell it. He reached down and pinched my chin, squishing my lips into a little round O shape. I wasn't thrilled about the chin pinching, but watching Xiaoming's face turn green made it worth it. I leaned into the performance, wrapping my arm around his and cooing, let's just go home, Jinyagij. Jinyagij. Big brother Jinya. He looked down at me, something flickering in his dark eyes. I think I short-circuited half his brain. He managed a, sure, picked up all the bags and we walked out together after saying goodbye to Chenhua. Behind us, Xiaoming stood there seething, eyes burning holes into our backs. In her previous life, Jinya had never once touched her, never once looked at her with anything but cold disgust. Was it possible he'd actually fallen for me in just a few days? No. She was certain we were putting on an act. She'd wait and see how long we could keep it up. Outside, Jinya strapped the bags to the bicycle frame and climbed on. I sat behind him and grabbed his shirt hem. Seconds passed. The bike didn't move. Aren't we going? I asked. He looked back. Say it again. Say what? What you called me just now. It took me a moment. Then my eyebrows drew together, and my face heated up. Xiao Jinya. Are we leaving or not? He snorted softly. Just a joke. Figures, use a man and then flip on him. I looked at his broad back and my lips curved without permission. I'd expected him to be cold and impossible to get along with. But he actually had a sense of humor. I felt more relaxed around him than I'd imagined. On the ride home, we talked casually. Thank you for playing along back there, I said. Your sister really can't stand seeing you happy. The less she can stand it, the better I want to live. Does she bully you a lot? Actually, before I married you, she and my stepmother were planning to sell me to the old bachelor in our village. The bicycle screeched to a sudden stop. I slammed into his back, my arms flying around his waist on instinct. My cheeks stung from the impact. What are you doing? His face had gone completely dark.
Cold as winter ice.
After a long silence, he slowly started pedaling again.
Saw the
big pothole ahead. Oh. I kept my arms around his waist this time, afraid of his terrible riding. When we got home, my mother-in-law was weaving a bamboo basket in the yard. She smiled when she saw us. Everything's cooked and ready. Just waiting for you too. Jinya carried all the bags inside. She checked. Cigarettes, liquor, tea, candy, all in order, all in pairs. I glanced at the bicycle. Do we need it again tomorrow? He nodded. Of course. I'm riding you back to your family. We ate dinner together, all four of us around the table, warm and easy. That evening, across the hills, Xiaomeng had spent the afternoon wandering the market until Runsheng came to collect her after work. The instant she saw him, she threw herself into his arms, crying. He looked uncomfortable and glanced around, embarrassed to be seen. She sobbed that she'd run into me at the co-op and I'd humiliated her in public. She said his sister Chenhua had just watched and done nothing to help. Then she twisted the knife with precision. But Runsheng, she doesn't act this way because she loves you. She's just bitter that I took what was hers. It's jealousy, nothing more. A few carefully chosen words, and whatever hopeful fantasy Runsheng had been nursing about me crumbled to dust. That night, Xiaomeng tried again to consummate their marriage. She bought the same snow cream I used, wearing its scent, doing everything she could to please him in the dim yellow light. Runsheng reached up and turned off the lamp so he wouldn't have to see her face. Less than 2 minutes later, a few ragged breaths, then nothing. His body went rigid for a moment before slumping. Xiaomeng stared into the darkness, stunned. No matter what she tried after that, he had nothing left to give. In the silence, she heard his tired, hoarse voice. Xiaomeng, I'm sorry. The next morning, I picked out a blue-collared dress with a white belt at the waist. I slipped on my strappy sandals. They were 2 years old now, with the edges peeling and showing dark marks underneath. I took a piece of white chalk and carefully colored over the worn spots until you couldn't tell unless you looked very closely. Jiang came out and caught me doing it. His eyes lingered for a moment, but he said nothing. I looked at his dark t-shirt and jeans and frowned. Can you change into something else? Into what? He scratched his head awkwardly. You pick for me? I went into his room and flipped through his tiny collection of neatly folded clothes. I found a light-colored button-up shirt. Wear this. You'll look more refined. Something cold flickered behind his eyes. I didn't understand it then, but he was thinking I wanted to remake him into someone like Jiang Runsheng, polished and bookish. He had no intention of being anyone's substitute. He took the shirt from my hand, and then, right in front of me, yanked off his t-shirt with one hand. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, sculpted back muscles, everything on full display. I spun around and fled his room. When he came out dressed, I gave him a proper look. The shirt and jeans actually suited him perfectly. His features were sharp and striking, his skin darker but in a rugged, magnetic way. He looked like a handsome rebel. How's this? Refined enough? He asked. It's good. I nodded, satisfied. We set out after breakfast. As we neared my father's house, I reminded him that Xiaomeng suspected we were faking our marriage. He needed to play his part well and not let anything slip. I don't want them figuring out we're just a paper couple, I said. He told me not to worry. He'd give the performance of a lifetime. We pulled up to the gate just as Runsheng and Xiaomeng arrived too. She was already staring at us, her thoughts stabbing into my ears. So Jiang really came with her. I'm going to find out today whether this is real or an act. I stepped closer to Jiang. He noticed Runsheng was also wearing a light-colored shirt, just like the one I'd picked for him. Something shifted in his jaw. Then, right in front of Runsheng, he draped his arm around my shoulders. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Runsheng flinched like he'd been stung. My father and stepmother saw the bags of gifts and beamed. Come in, we filed into the main room. The moment the gift bags hit the floor, my 12-year-old half-brother Qiao dove in, rummaging through everything.
Mom.
Big sister bought so many pastries. He grabbed a whole package and ran off to eat in the back room. Xiaomeng looked embarrassed. Mom, you should control him. His teeth are practically rotting. My stepmother just laughed. He's a child. Let him enjoy his snacks. Everyone sat down for tea. My father made small talk, but his warmth was clearly directed at Runsheng, not Jiang. He asked about Runsheng's work, his benefits, his holiday bonuses. Xiaomeng clung to Runsheng's arm and piled on the bragging. Runsheng is the station's top broadcaster. He gets extra bonuses at Mid-Autumn Festival. He already promised to take you and Mom and little brother on a city trip when the bonus comes. Runsheng's eyebrows pinched together. She was making promises he'd never agreed to, but he couldn't contradict her in front of everyone, so he managed a weak smile. Xiaomeng kept going, name-dropping Runsheng's sister Chunhua at the supply co-op. Mom, Dad, if you need anything, just go there and mention my name. My stepmother's eyes gleamed with calculations. Through all of this, Jiang sat quietly beside me, watching my father fawn over Runsheng while barely acknowledging us. I could sense him putting things together, understanding how overlooked I'd always been in this house. I'd had enough. Dad, we have things to do at home. We'll head back now. No need to stay for lunch. My father's smile dimmed. You just got here. If you leave this quickly, people will think we mistreated you. My stepmother chimed in. I killed a chicken for today. Stay for lunch. Xiaomeng added pressure too. Come on, Qingyan. It's our first family gathering since the weddings. Their excessive enthusiasm made my instincts tingle. Something felt off. This homecoming meal wasn't going to be simple, but fine. Whatever they were planning, I'd deal with it when it came. My father chatted with Runsheng, then finally turned to Jinya with a few half-hearted questions. Jinya gave short, flat answers. My father clearly assumed the Xiao family was poor and struggling, so he avoided the topic of money to spare Jinya's dignity. The air went awkward. To fill the silence, my father turned to lecturing me. Qingyan, your mother-in-law has bad legs. You need to serve her and your husband properly. Learn to cook if you can already. A woman should put family first. Before I could respond, Jinya spoke up, his voice calm and firm. My mother is healthy and strong. She's an excellent cook. In her spare time, she even weaves bamboo baskets for extra income. And if she ever needs help, I can cook perfectly fine myself. Qingyan will never go hungry. Then, in front of everyone, he took my hand in his. His voice carried a quiet weight. Besides, Qingyan's hands are too delicate for rough work. None of us would let her do chores. She's educated and talented. These hands should be writing and teaching. His palm was rough with calluses, thick and warm. It wrapped around my small, soft hand like a shield. His thumb moved gently, almost absently, rubbing my fingertips. My ears went hot. I instinctively tried to pull away, but he held on tighter. My heartbeat quickened. Just a little.